Chapter 1573. After a few breaths, the scorpion the size of a pot lid was trapped in a formation. It was dizzy and could not escape. Lu Yi strode towards the bamboo building and went up the stairs to the second floor. When he pushed open the bamboo door, a fishy smell hit his face and a hissing sound could be heard. With a casual grab, he caught a green snake in his hand. He fixed his eyes on it. This green snake was as long as a fresh and tender bamboo branch. Even though he was holding its head, its ferocity did not diminish. The snake's forked tongue flickered in and out. Lu Yi stared at it, and with just a slight push of his own power, the green snake immediately went limp, and its originally straight body went limp. He casually coiled it around his waist and tied a knot. When he looked up, he saw Wuxia walking out from the inner room. She was carrying a large number of bundles, big and small. She looked like she was about to go on a long trip. Lu Yi was surprised. Madam, where are you going?" It was the first time Wuxia had heard him call her that, but the two of them were used to fooling around when they were together, so she was not surprised. She put on a straight face and spat, "Bah, who's your madam? Don't call me that." She raised her hand and wiped the corners of her eyes full of resentment and her face full of tears. "Where else can I go? Of course I'm going to make room for your family of 3. You can live here in the future and live happily with a filial daughter." Lu Yi chased after her to explain, but when he saw Huaxi's expression, he knew that there was no need to explain further. He chuckled and said, "Where else can you live if not here?" Huaxi's voice was sad. "This world is so big, there must be a place for me to stay. If not, I'll just go to a small nest in the starry sky and live." "Are you really leaving?" Lu Yi pretended to be surprised. Huaxi said, "It's always the newcomers who are smiling. The old ones are only an eyesore. Why should I stay?" Lu Yi nodded. "That makes sense. Be careful on the road. When you find a place to stay, let me know and I'll come back to see you. Take care of yourself." Huaxi looked at him deeply, then walked out with bags of various sizes. As they brushed past each other, Huaxi suddenly cried out in alarm. Her body was lifted into the air, and she instinctively threw away the package in her hands. She opened her arms and hugged Lu Yi's neck. "What are you doing?" Lu Yi lowered her head and stared at her. "Take a guess." Huaxi still wanted to struggle, but she was slapped down by Lu Yi and immediately became obedient. Her hair was disheveled, and her face was covered in disarray. After a long while, Huaxi laid lazily on Lu Yi's chest. She crossed her hands and rested her chin on them. Then she stared at him with wide eyes. Her expression was one of shock. "You're saying that girl is Sunshine?" Lu Yi held his head in his hands and nodded solemnly. "Yaya is indeed Sunshine, but she suffered from the soul-devouring aphids, so there are some problems with her mind. Now she has the temperament of a child." Huaxi expressed her suspicions. "Are you lying to me?" No matter how she looked at it, this matter sounded unreal. Lu Yi raised her hand and pinched her nose. "If I really wanted to lie to you, I wouldn't have made it sound so ridiculous." Huaxi thought it was reasonable, so she said, "So she regarded you as her father and that woman as her mother?" "That is fellow Taoist Li Shang. Li Shang is from the Soul clan, and Yi is somewhat similar to her. I brought her back mainly to solve the problem of Immortal Essence City. Not many people in 9 regions knew about Immortal Essence City. Lu Yi had mentioned it to Huaxi before, so Huaxi had a little understanding of Immortal Essence City. Hearing this, Huaxi nodded. "The ancestors of Immortal Essence City have suffered for many years. It would be good if it could be solved. So now you understand, don't believe your own eyes easily in the future. You have to listen to other people's explanation." Lu Yi raised his hand and slapped her again. Her flesh rose and fell, and it felt great to the touch. Huaxi smiled and suddenly opened her mouth and bit Lu Yi's shoulder. This time, she bit so hard that Lu Yi felt pain. "What are you doing?" Lu Yi felt that his shoulder was bitten. It could be seen that Huaxi used a lot of force. "Are you retaliating against me?" Huaxi's eyes flashed with a dangerous light as she slanted her eyes at Lu Yi. "What do you mean?" Lu Yi was puzzled. "When I was in the Wushuang continent, I was holding someone else's child. So now you suddenly brought a child back. There's no such thing. Lu Yi denied it. Even if there was, he would never admit it. Otherwise, with Hua Xi's temperament, she would retaliate sooner or later. Just pretend there's no such thing. Hua Xi curled her lips and suddenly opened her mouth and bit Lu Ye's other shoulder. What's wrong? Lu Yi endured the pain and bit harder than before. He was sure that his shoulder was bitten. Hua Xi looked up. Her lips were dark red, and the light in her eyes was even more dangerous. She exhaled at Lu Yi and said, "Just now, you seem to have some more tricks up your sleeves, which has never happened before. How do you explain this?" Lu Ye's heart thumped, but his face was calm. "I'm talented and self-taught." Hua Xi looked at him with a smile, and her deep eyes seemed to look into the depths of his soul. Then she lowered her head, and her scattered hair covered her delicate face, making people unable to see her expression. Her voice, however, sounded like it came from the depths of purgatory. "Then I have to take a good look." Lu Yi could not help but shudder. Jade Blood Sect, at the center of Ao Mountain's array, a few disciples guarding this place stared at the sky, seemingly having nothing to do. Suddenly, a ray of light swept in from the outside and entered Ao Mountain, rushing towards the location of the Guardian Peak. A disciple chewed on a blade of grass and said in boredom, "How many waves has it been today?" "It's the 4th wave. There are almost 100 constellations here." Another disciple replied. "What's going on?" Someone did not understand. The disciples guarding this place did not have high cultivations, only at the level of true lake. Hence, they did not know the exact reason. They only knew that since a few days ago, cultivators from constellations kept coming to visit. At first, there were not many people, and the frequency was not high. However, as time passed, more and more people came, and the frequency increased. It was as if all the constellations in the 9 continents were rushing back from the starry sky to come here. It could be foreseen that the more time passed, the more frequent this situation would be. A true lake cultivator who knew the inside story said softly, "This should be related to the person on Chuizhu Peak." Chuizhu Peak? When they heard this, the image of a woman with a gentle temperament immediately appeared in their minds. Many of them had seen this woman before and knew that she was one of the earliest disciples of the Blue Blood sect and was one of the few constellations in the sect. The name of the poison doctor was also widely known. The person who spoke knew who they were thinking about and said, "It's not the poison doctor, it's the peak master of Chuizhu Peak." The few true lake cultivators were shocked. That legend? Everyone knew that the peak master of Chuizhu Peak was a legendary figure. He had not been in the Jade Blood sect for long and did not seem to be very old. However, he seemed to be the mastermind behind all the major events in the 9 continents. He was also one of the earliest cultivators to ascend to the constellation level. 6 years ago, he disappeared for some reason and there was no news of him. "He's back?" Someone asked in shock. "I heard from Marshal Uncle Kong Nyo that he's back. It seems like there's something big going on, which is why the constellations from the 9 continents are here to visit. What's the big thing? Who knows? But let's wait and see. Anything related to him is not an ordinary matter. Maybe the 9 continents is going to change again." On Shozhen Peak, Shui Yuan looked in the direction of Chuizhu Peak with a worried expression. Ever since Hua Xi and Lu Yi left one after another that day, Shui Yuan did not even need to think to know what the two of them were doing. What else could they do when they met after such a long separation? But it had been a few days, why hadn't they come out yet? The constellations who came to visit after hearing the news could not see Lu Yi, so Shui Yuan could only receive them herself. In the past few days, she had received more than 100 people, so she did not even have time to study the pill recipe. Although Lu Yi didn't talk to her about anything after he came back from Lishang, from the mouth of the 9 regions constellations, she learned about Lu Ye's plans after his return. It was because he was going to bring a group of people to the 10,000 Elephant Sea that the cultivators of the 9 continents could not wait to rush back from the starry sky to ask Lu Yi about various matters. However, everyone knew that it was impossible for Lu Yi to take everyone with him this time. He could only take a portion of them with him. However, there were too many constellations that were interested in the 10,000 Elephant Sea. Who should go and who should stay was a problem that required careful coordination. The constellations who came to visit were all familiar with Lu Yi, so they wanted to greet him in advance and go through the back door. In the end, Shui Yuan had no choice but to tell everyone that they would gather at the 9 Continents Guardian Hall 1 month later. At that time, Lu Yi would appear and explain everything. Only then did the Jade Blood sect become much quieter. 1 month was still a little rushed. After all, some constellations of the 9 continents were very far away in the starry sky. Even if they received the news, they would not be able to rush back in 1 month. Now, the only planetary ship in the 9 continents had set sail, preparing to bring back the constellations that were scattered outside as much as possible. Everything was going on in full swing, but the initiator was nowhere to be seen. 3 days, 5 days, 10 days, half a month, Li Shang brought Yaya to live on the Guardian Peak. Yaya had a child's temperament, jumping up and down every day, fishing for birds and catching fish. Others did not know the details of her sunshine, but Li Shang was clear about it, so he stayed by her side every day to prevent anyone from provoking her. Seeing that the 1-month deadline was approaching, Lu Yi still did not show up. Shui Yuan could only go to the Cuizhu Peak personally to discuss with him. Just as she arrived at the Cuizhu Peak, she saw a familiar figure holding the bamboo tower's stairs, staggering down step by step. Shui Yuan took a closer look and turned pale with fright. She hurried forward. "Little junior brother, how did you end up like this?" At this moment, Lu Yi had dark circles under his eyes. His eyes were sunken, and his face was bloodless. He looked like his vitality had been greatly damaged. Even with his late-stage constellation foundation, his legs were actually shaking when he walked. Hearing the voice, Lu Yi took a look. His eyes slowly focused, and he forced a smile. "Second senior sister." Chapter 1574. What's going on? Shui Yuan didn't know whether to laugh or cry. She thought that since the two of them had been hiding here for a month, they must be enjoying themselves. However, seeing junior brother's attitude, it seemed that things were not what she thought. Family misfortune, it's a long story. Lu Yi waved his hands sadly. He almost thought that he was going to die here. If it weren't for the 1-month deadline, and many people urging him to hurry to the 9 Regions Guard Palace, he wouldn't have been able to leave. "Lu Yi." Hua Xi's voice came from the bamboo house, gentle as water. "It's time to drink the medicine." Hearing this voice, Lu Ye's face changed. He immediately urged his spiritual power, and his body swayed as he soared into the sky, disappearing in the blink of an eye. Inside the bamboo house, Hua Xi walked out with a huge bowl in her hands. The bowl was filled with a dark green liquid. Even the steam coming out of the bowl was green. Shui Yuan looked up and was surprised to find that Hua Xi was completely different from Lu Ye's haggard state. Hua Xi's face was radiant, and her skin was white with rosy, tender as if it could drip water. After only a month, Hua Xi seemed to be a few years younger. Shui Yuan even felt that Hua Xi's cultivation had become more profound. Why did he run away? Hua Xi looked in the direction Lu Yi had left with a faint smile on her face. She then lowered her head to look at the medicinal concoction in her bowl and drank it all. This was a great tonic that she had spent a lot of effort to concoct, so she couldn't waste it easily. Shui Yuan looked at her snappily and understood what was going on. She blushed and said, "Although you're young, you still have to control yourself." Hua Xi nodded meekly. "Second senior sister is right. I'll talk to him next time." In the sky, Lu Yi went straight in the direction of the 9 Regions Guard Palace. He swayed for a while before he could stabilize his body. He was glad that he had escaped from the tiger's den. In this 1 month, he had gained a lot of insights. He finally understood why there was an ancient saying that there were only exhausted cows in the world and no plowed fields. A woman's physique was a very wonderful thing. She was obviously as soft as mud and begged for help, but she could recover in a short time. Lu Yi felt that he had been deceived by Hua Xi. Because in the past month, Hua Xi had acted as if she was about to die, but in the end, the one who was about to die was him. This made him mistakenly think that he could win as long as he worked harder, but in fact, Wuxia had always been in control of the battle. He had indeed been deceived. The Guardian Hall of the 9 States was located in the Heaven continent. The first guardian was Jianghu. Lu Yi had also been a guardian for a period of time. He was the second guardian, so he was familiar with the place. With his current speed, he only needed a short moment to arrive at the Guardian Hall. From afar, he could sense that a large group of constellations were gathered there. Someone with sharp eyes suddenly shouted, "Lu Yi is here." In the next moment, many constellations looked in this direction and saw Lu Yi's figure. Lu Yi landed in front of the Guardian Hall and looked around. He saw many familiar and unfamiliar faces. He forced himself to stay alert and cupped his fists. "Sorry for the long wait." Pangjin laughed. "You came at the right time. We came early." He looked at Lu Yi carefully and asked in confusion, "Yeah, are you injured? You don't look good." Lu Yi coughed. "It's just a small injury." He turned around and said, "There are a lot of people here. Let's talk outside." There were about 709 prefectures' constellation mansions gathered here. It could be seen how efficient these constellation mansions were. Originally, these people were scattered all over the starry skies. After hearing the news, they all hurriedly rushed back. Not all of them were here, otherwise, there would be more people. With so many people, there was no way they could all enter the Guardian Hall, so they might as well wait outside. No one had any objections. They each found a place to sit or stand. All of them looked in Lu Yi's direction. Lu Yi took out a cattail hassock and sat down. He did not beat around the bush and said directly, "I believe that everyone has heard some news from different channels. This is also the reason why everyone is gathered here. I don't know what everyone has heard, but if you have any questions, feel free to ask. I can answer them." As soon as he finished speaking, there was a buzz. A large group of people spoke one after another. The scene instantly became chaotic. Lu Yi listened attentively. Although the scene was chaotic, he could easily hear them clearly if he paid attention. He had an idea. After the noise subsided, he smiled and said, "It seems that everyone is interested in the 1,000-elephant sea. In that case, let's talk about it. I accidentally wandered there when I was being chased by Yu Yao from the Qing Li Dao world." He had told many people about the 1,000-elephant sea. Now that he mentioned it again, he was naturally familiar with it. Soon, the 1,000-elephant sea's magnificence was displayed in front of everyone like a painting. Lu Yi did not only talk about the beauty of the 1,000-elephant sea. He also talked about the chaos and danger there. After that, he mentioned that he had obtained the star chart from the reincarnation tree. He had experienced many hardships on the way back. The group of star constellations who had not seen much of the world listened with fascination. After Lu Yi finished speaking, everyone had a general understanding of the 1,000-elephant sea and the various things that had happened along the way. Only then did Lu Yi speak, "Although I intend to bring some people to the 10,000-elephant sea, whether or not we should do so will depend on the common opinion of all of you. To be honest, although our 9 provinces is only a newly promoted large domain, it was an extremely famous top domain 10,000 years ago. Later on, something happened to it and it attracted attacks from all sides, causing it to decline. Therefore, if we connect with a mainstream domain like the 10,000-elephant sea, it will be beneficial for us, but there are also some disadvantages. If the existence of the 9 provinces is exposed one day, it may cause some trouble. 10,000 years was a long time, but it was not so long for the cultivation world. Especially when it came to things like hatred, it was not easy to erase it. There were still people like Ma Bin active in the previous 9 states. If there was one Ma Bin, who knew if there would be a second or a third? Ma Bin did not want Lu Yi to have anything to do with him. He did not even dare to go to the reincarnation tree to inquire about the 9 states. He was afraid that someone would follow the vine to the melon. Therefore, once the name of the 9 states was exposed, there would be a lot of trouble. Connecting with a mainstream domain like the 1,000-elephant sea was a risk. Everyone naturally understood this. Longbow said, "There is no such thing as a free lunch in this world. The 9 states is new, and we are only at the early stage of cultivation. If we rely on searching for spiritual jades in the starry sky to cultivate, when will we be able to reach the moon jade sunshine realm? The glory of the previous 9 states was not created by hiding behind closed doors. This is a rare opportunity, how can we miss it? Immediately, a large group of people nodded in agreement. It was not that those who did not want to go to the Thousand Elephant Sea, but they were more concerned about the stakes involved. Pang Zhen also said, "This is a rare opportunity, we cannot miss it. Some risks have to be taken, and there are some things that are useless just hiding. We cannot shrink back just because we are afraid. Only by being strong can we have the power to protect ourselves when danger comes." Lu Yi said, "It seems that everyone agrees to go to the Thousand Elephant Sea." Pang Zhen smiled, "If we don't agree, why would we come here?" Lu Yi nodded. "Alright, since that is the case, let's discuss the rules. There are currently 1,500 constellations in the 9 states. This time, I am prepared to bring 300 people to scout the way. When we have a firm foothold in the Thousand Elephant Sea and familiarize ourselves with the route, if there is anyone else who wants to go to the Thousand Elephant Sea, they can go on their own." Pang Zhen said, 300 people, isn't that a little too little? Although he knew that Lu Yi could not bring all of them, 300 people only made up 20% of the total number of people in the Thousand Elephant Sea. Lu Yi said, "The first batch does not need too many people. Moreover, this operation is not just about the 9 states. In the Jade Conch Galaxy, the Qingli Dao world and the Jade Conch Galaxy will have to send people. I have already visited the Qingli Dao world, but the Jade Conch Galaxy has not contacted them yet. However, with the 9 states' current foundation, if we want to establish ourselves in the Thousand Elephant Sea, we have to cooperate with the other 2 worlds. They have Yu Yao, but we don't." Pang Zhen nodded in understanding. After a moment of silence, Long Bai cleared his throat and said, 300 out of 1,500. How to choose is the problem. Yi, do you have any ideas? There were about 700 people gathered here alone, and there were many who had not come yet. All of them were looking forward to it. It was not easy to choose 300 people. Lu Yi hurriedly said, "I am only in charge of leading the way. As for how to choose the people, you can discuss among yourselves. There is only one thing, do not harm the harmony. This is not the only opportunity." He had never planned to get involved in the selection of people. He only needed to bring his family members to the Thousand Elephant Sea. Of course, the prerequisite was that they were willing to go. If anyone did not want to go, he would not force them. As he spoke, Lu Yi took out a storage ring and handed it to Pang Zhen. "Senior brother Pang, keep the things inside for now. You can distribute them as you wish." After he finished speaking, Lu Yi stood up and shot into the sky. What he left for Pang Zhen were naturally the starships and warships he had brought back from the Thousand Elephant Sea. He had left some of them with Wu Shuang, and the rest were all given to Pang Zhen. Seeing Lu Yi leave, Pang Zhen and Long Bai looked at each other and smiled bitterly. They knew that Lu Yi did not want to offend anyone, so he left the hot potato to them. However, there was nothing they could do. They could only brace themselves and discuss with the others. After leaving the Guardian Hall, Lu Yi found a desolate place and called out, "Little Nine." An inexplicable energy gathered around Lu Yi as Little Nine appeared. It was still in the form of a rabbit. Looking at Lu Yi, it flew into a rage and said, "That woman is too much. How could she torture you like this? Look at what she's done to you. Lu Yi, do you want me to help you teach her a lesson?" Lu Yi didn't know whether to laugh or cry. What lesson? Children shouldn't talk nonsense when they don't know anything. Besides, I have already taught her a lesson. Chapter 1575. When Little Nine heard this, it finally gave up. "Let me show you something good," Lu Yi said as he took out 2 fist-sized things from his storage ring. Little Nine's gaze was immediately attracted as it skipped over to Lu Yi. "What is this?" Little Nine looked at it suspiciously, not quite recognizing this thing, but instinctively felt that this thing seemed to be of great use to Jojo. World Eater Beast's Crystal Core. This is the crystal core of the World Eater Beast? Little Nine was overjoyed. It undoubtedly knew about the World Eater Beast, but it had never seen it before. "It's the real deal." Lu Yi casually threw the 2 crystal cores over. Little Nine raised its paw to catch them, tilting its head and looking left and right. The more it looked, the happier it was. Then, Lu Yi watched as it opened its mouth wide and swallowed the 2 crystal cores into its stomach one at a time. The rabbit in front of him was the manifestation of Little Nine. It was not a physical body, but a special kind of energy gathering. Naturally, it could not eat. So it seemed that Little Nine had swallowed the 2 crystal cores into its stomach, but in fact, the 2 crystal cores of the World Eater beast had been moved to another place, allowing Jojo to slowly digest these 2 crystal cores and improve its foundation. Is there anything else? Little Nine looked at Lu Yi with a somewhat unsatisfied expression. Thinking back to when Lu Yi was not strong enough, it had secretly taken care of him many times, openly and secretly giving Lu Yi many benefits. Now that Lu Yi was strong, it knew to bring back good things from the outside. Suddenly, it felt like its own child had worked hard outside and learned to be filial to its elders. No more. Lu Yi spread his hands. It was not easy to encounter a World Eater beast. Along the way, he had encountered it by chance in the Clear Wind realm. While speaking, Lu Yi remembered something, right? Do you recognize what this is? As he spoke, he took out another item from his storage ring. It was pink in color, and at first glance, it looked like the body of a pink snake. It was rather fleshy, but in reality, it was not flesh and blood, and there was no trace of blood. It was the thing that Lu Yi had brought back from the Nebula burial mound in the Thousand Hills tomb. The blue bird had swallowed the pink worm-like thing in the burial mound. As a result, there were several dozen feet of it left, and it was all taken back by Lu Yi. It contained a surging energy, but ordinary refining methods were useless. Only when Lu Yi activated the talent tree could he use the talent tree to devour the energy, but in this way, the fuel consumption of the talent tree was too serious. To bear the consumption of the talent tree's fuel, he might as well go cultivate in the 10,000 Hills Sea. Therefore, this thing was of little value to him. Li Sheng also didn't recognize what it was. Lu Yi wanted to let Little Nine take a look to see if he could find any clues. He threw the pink flesh-like object in front of Little Nine. Little Nine walked around the object while looking at it. Lu Yi gradually realized that something was wrong because the more Little Nine looked at it, the brighter its eyes became. It looked like it was itching for something. It was even more obvious than when it saw the World Eater beast's crystal core. Then Little Lu opened his mouth again. A rabbit's mouth wasn't that big. Logically speaking, it shouldn't be able to swallow such a big thing. But the rabbit that Little Nine had transformed into wasn't a real rabbit. So when it opened its mouth, its entire head suddenly expanded many times. Even the rabbit's mouth became a bloody mouth. In one bite, a large piece of pink disappeared without a trace. Lu Yi was stunned. What is this? Little Lu looked at him. I don't know. I don't know what you eat. Lu Yi did not know whether to laugh or cry. Little Lu said, although I don't know what it is, the energy contained in it is the foundation of a world. It is the same as the energy in the realm-devouring beast's crystal core. It can help the growth of a world. Lu Yi was stunned. Then he silently took out the pink flesh-like thing from his storage ring. Little Nine was dumbstruck, then cheered and jumped up in joy. One bite at a time, he ate all the things that Lu Yi took out into his stomach. In just a moment he finished it all. It's gone. Lu Yi looked at him. Little Lu said, where did you get this thing? The energy contained in it seems to be even stronger than the realm-devouring beast's crystal core. Lu Yi thought for a moment and said, on the way back, we passed by a space wonder called the Thousand Mound Grave. There were many large and small nebula burial mounds. This thing was taken out from one of the burial mounds. Little Lu's rabbit eyes lit up. There are many burial mounds? Lu Yi nodded solemnly, countless. He could tell what Little Lu was thinking at a glance and cut off his fantasies, but that burial mound is inexplicably dangerous. It's fine if you don't go near it, but once you do, you will be attacked. The reason I was able to obtain these things was all thanks to a blue bird. He told him what happened before. Little Lu was shocked when he heard this. That blue bird should be an ancient remnant. Ancient remnant? This was the first time Lu Yi had heard this term. Little Lu explained, in ancient times, there were all kinds of fierce birds and strange beasts that wreaked havoc in the starry sky. They were all extremely large. But with the various changes in the starry sky and the hunting of powerful cultivators, the number of these ancient remnant became fewer and fewer. It is very rare to encounter them now. These words made Lu Yi think of the heavenly dog star. From afar, the heavenly dog star looked like a large dog. If the heavenly dog star was really formed from the corpse of a large dog, then this large dog was most likely an ancient remnant when it was alive, a vicious beast from the same era as the blue bird. Lu Yi quickly becomes stronger. The future of 9 provinces depends on you. Little Lu suddenly said in a serious tone. This feeling of not being able to obtain a treasure mountain was too uncomfortable. If the tombs in the Qianqiu tomb contain those big pink worm-like things, 9 regions would only need to swallow some of them to obtain huge growth. At that time, it would not be a problem for them to be promoted to a top realm. But how could it be so simple to have ideas about the nebula burial mounds in the 1,000-mound grave? Not to mention the fact that the blue bird treated the pink bugs in the burial mounds as food, the burial mounds themselves contained great danger. Without enough strength, it was impossible to break open the burial mounds and obtain the pink bugs. But cultivation was not something that could be done overnight. Lu Yi was only at the late stage of the constellation realm. There was still Yu Yao and Ri Ri. If he wanted to reach Ri Ri, he did not know how many years it would take. Fortunately, 9 provinces was currently devouring the foundation of the Blood Forge world and Wushuang, gradually growing steadily. For the time being, there was no urgent need for other external forces. After dawdling with little Lu for a long time, Lu Yi reluctantly returned to the Blue Blood sect. On Shoujin Peak, Hua Si and Shui Yuan were discussing something together. Seeing Lu Yi return, Hua Si raised her eyes and looked at him with a smile. Lu Yi forced himself to remain calm and avoided her gaze. He walked forward and asked, "What are you two studying?" Shui Yuan said, "After 9 regions was promoted to a large domain, some strange flowers and herbs that have never been seen before have been bred in the domain. They have some value in medicine. Junior sister and I are using these strange flowers and herbs as the basis to see if we can develop some suitable pill recipes." Lu Yi said, "Don't research anymore. When we go back to the 10,000 Elephant Sea, I'll ask someone to teach you some things." How could it be more convenient to research like this than to ask someone to teach them? Lu Yi just happened to have a suitable candidate in mind to recommend to them. That person's pill refining skills were extremely good, and he was suitable to guide Shui Yuan and Hua Si. Hearing him say this, Shui Yuan and Hua Si looked at each other. They suddenly felt that their originally excited research was meaningless. Hua Si's expression was somewhat resentful. "Why didn't you say so earlier?" Lu Yi saw that something was wrong and hurriedly changed the topic. "That's right, I brought back a gift." As he said this, he took out 2 green crystals and handed one to each of them. Shui Yuan and Hua Si looked at them curiously, but they could not figure out what they were at the moment. Lu Yi explained, "This is the crystal core of the Wood Spirit clan. It's very useful for medical practitioners. You'll know after you refine it." These 2 wood crystals were given to him by the Wood Spirit clan leader after he was entrusted by the reincarnation tree to help the Wood Spirit clan and the Spore clan resolve the crisis. He originally wanted to bring them back for Hua Si and Shui Yuan, but he forgot about it some time ago. Lu Yi then took out many small cloth bags from her storage ring and handed them all to Shui Yuan. "These are some spiritual plants that I bought from the 10,000 Elephant Sea. I don't know much about this, so I just casually bought some. Perhaps some are not suitable for planting in the 9 prefectures. Second senior sister, please find someone to cultivate them." This was one of the benefits of connecting with the mainstream of the starry sky. Generally, new large realms would breed some strange flowers and herbs, but the quantity and quality were limited. However, if one was connected with the mainstream of the starry sky, they could buy some spiritual plants back like Lu Yi and cultivate them themselves. It was very convenient to buy whatever they wanted. After bidding farewell to the 2, Lu Yi found Li Shang and Yaya somewhere in Ao Mountain. Since coming to 9 provinces, Yaya had been playing like crazy. The tired Li Shang also followed her up the mountain and down the river like an old mother. When Lu Yi found them, Yaya was making a fire in the wilderness. She roasted some bird eggs on the fire, and there was a large flock of birds circling above her head, as if they were complaining about Yaya's behavior. Li Shang looked at Lu Yi with resentment. You finally showed up. Even when they were captured and imprisoned, it was not as difficult as raising a child. The key was that Yaya's temperament was unpredictable, and there were no signs before she acted. I haven't returned for a long time, and there are some things that need to be taken care of. I'll have to trouble you. Lu Yi said with a serious face. Is that so? Li Shang's expression was playful, and he obviously knew something. Yaya held the roasted bird eggs and handed them over. Daddy. Lu Yi had noticed before that Yaya seemed to like to share her favorite things, so at this time it was best to follow her heart, otherwise she would be a little unhappy. Lu Yi took the roasted bird eggs, peeled them and ate them. Then he praised Yaya, making her very happy. He turned to Li Shang. Fellow, please follow me to a place. Li Shang's expression was serious, and he vaguely understood. Chapter 1576. The reason why Li Shang took the trouble to return to 9 regions with Lu Yi was because of the agreement between them. Lu Yi gave her freedom, and she had to help Lu Ye's group of friends find a way out. Back then, she had accidentally exposed her whereabouts and was captured by a sunshine cultivator. In the end, she was sent to the Vientiane Chamber of Commerce to be auctioned. Lu Yi had spent a lot of money to snatch her from another bidder. For Li Shang, Lu even missed the Phoenix Sky Blue crystal. Of course, in hindsight, missing it was a good thing, because he got the Hui and didn't need the Phoenix Sky Blue crystal at all. When she first met Li Shang was filled with vigilance. This was because no one knew better than the Spiritas just how valuable they were to the cultivators of other races. Thus, for a long time, Li Shang didn't even bother to speak a single word to Lu Yi. No matter how sincere Lu Yi appeared to be, Li Shang felt that it was all just a trick of Lu Ye's. He was trying to win her trust so that she would willingly serve him. It wasn't until Lu Yi was summoned by the reincarnation tree that Li Shang realized Lu Ye's terrifying potential. It was also from that time that Li Shang gradually changed her impression of Lu Yi. Because those who could be chosen by the reincarnation tree and given a brand, there was no need to say anything about their temperament. It was basically impossible for them to be evil people. Slowly getting in touch, slowly getting familiar with each other, and now, it could be said that they confided in each other. After returning to this side of the world for a month, Lu Yi had disappeared without a trace. Now that he suddenly appeared today, Li Shang naturally knew his intentions. As Lu Ye's voice fell, the void in front of him suddenly rippled, and then a portal appeared out of thin air. Li Shang was surprised, because she didn't notice any signs of Lu Yi urging spiritual power or other actions. With her eyesight, she couldn't see how this portal opened. How could she know that 9 regions had its own secrets? Lu Yi only needed to greet Little 9 in advance, and under the operation of Little 9, this portal could open whenever he wanted. Dao friend please? Lu Yi gestured with his hand. Although Li Shang was puzzled, she didn't continue to investigate and stepped into the portal. Lu Yi picked up Yaya from the side and followed him in. The familiar Immortal Essence city immediately came into view. The place where Lu Yi and Li Shang appeared was the sole pool of the city lord mansion. At this moment, a middle-aged man stood quietly by the side, looking in their direction. Lu Yi turned his head and bowed. Senior. This middle-aged man was the mayor of Immortal Origin City, Zhang Zishan. Zhang Zishan smiled and replied, Ye is here. Then he glanced at Yaya in Lu Ye's arms and revealed a puzzled look, wondering why Lu Yi had brought a child in. Zhang Zishan's cultivation was only at the peak of the divine sea. With his eyesight, he naturally could not see through Yaya. But when he looked at Li Shang, he couldn't help but reveal a surprised expression, because he felt that there was a strange aura on Li Shang's body, and this aura gave him an inexplicable sense of intimacy. This feeling was obviously very abnormal. This is fellow Taoist Li Shang. Lu Yi introduced. Senior, has Little 9 greeted you? Zhang Zishan said, Little Jiao only said that you would bring a friend over, but he didn't mention the specifics. Lu Yi understood and explained, Senior, fellow Taoist Li Shang isn't a human. She's a soul. Just as he was speaking, the soul pool beside him suddenly surged. Then, a few immortal essence guardians jumped out and rushed toward him while cursing. Lu Yi was dumbfounded. Zhang Zishan explained, "The secret realm of Immortal Essence City has opened, and now there is a group of little guys here to gain experience." Lu Yi spread out his divine sense, and sure enough, he sensed that there were many spirit stream realm cultivators scattered all over the city. Many of them were fighting fiercely with the Immortal Essence defenders. There was also a battlefield where over 100 spirit stream realm cultivators were divided into two groups, attacking each other. This reminded him of the scene when he first entered Immortal Essence City, which seemed to be not much different from the scene in front of him. Now, although 9 regions had been promoted to a large domain, the battle between Grand Heaven Alliance and Myriad Devil Ridge was still ongoing in the Spirit Stream battlefield and the Cloud River battlefield. Although there would inevitably be many casualties, the constellations of 9 regions had come this way step by step. Everyone knew that flowers raised in a greenhouse would not grow up, so 9 regions needed to fight and confront each other. If the world was truly harmonious, then the cultivators would also lose the opportunity to sharpen themselves. Only the cultivators who grew up in a bloody storm had the ability to face greater risks in the outside world. Otherwise, even if they were successful in their cultivation, they would be weak outside of 9 regions. The true strength of the Immortal Essence Guardians was naturally not as simple as Spirit Stream Realm. They had Cloud River, True Lake, and even Divine Sea Realm. However, when the secret realm of Immortal Essence City opened, the Immortal Essence Guardians would only use the strength of Spirit Stream Realm, so they would inevitably be killed by the cultivators. However, the Immortal Essence Guardians were all immortal in Immortal Essence City. Even if they were killed, they would be resurrected from the soul pool. Those Immortal Essence Guardians who were cursing just now should have been killed. Turning the Immortal Essence City into a secret realm, allowing the cultivators of 9 regions to gain experience in it, was also a way for the Immortal Essence Guardians to maintain their sanity, because most of the time, they were sleeping in the soul pool. If they slept for too long, even with the nourishment of the soul pool, their sanity might have problems. Letting the cultivators enter this place to gain experience would increase the vitality of the Immortal Essence City, and the Immortal Essence Guardians could maintain their sanity for a longer time. In the past, the Immortal Essence City would occasionally be invaded by the Insect Clan, but since the cultivators of 9 regions captured the Insect Clan's secret realm, the Insect Clan had disappeared. Right now, the only way was to let the cultivators of 9 regions come in to gain experience. Lu Yi naturally looked down on this level of experience. Back then, she had risked her life to sharpen herself here, but now, looking at it again, it was just like children playing house. Beside the soul pool, Zhang Zishan looked at Li Shang and asked, "May I ask, fellow Taoist, what kind of race is the Soul Clan?" Li Shang smiled slightly and didn't explain. Instead, she slightly urged her own power. Visible to the naked eye, Li Shang's figure became illusory. Zhang Zishan's expression became very shocked, because with the urging of Li Shang's power, he noticed that the nature of the existence of the woman in front of him was similar to himself and the Immortal Essence Guardians. Li Shang then said, "Strictly speaking, you are also considered as the Soul Clan, but you are not born as the Soul Clan, but derived from the loss of your physical body. Fundamentally, you are slightly different from the real Soul Clan, but there is not much difference in nature." Lu Ye's expression was slightly shaken. Although he had this conjecture, it was still difficult to be sure before Li Shang confirmed it. Now, with Li Shang's words, the big stone hanging in his heart finally fell to the ground. Then he said, "Senior, I brought fellow Taoist Li Shang here to ask her to find a way out for you. Now that the crisis of 9 regions has been lifted and the Insect Clan's secret realm has been cleared, the ancestors of the Immortal Essence City can't be trapped in this soul pool forever." Zhang Zishan nodded. "You are very considerate." The reason why the Immortal Essence City existed was mainly to guard a crack in the Insect Clan's secret realm. Now that the crisis of the Insect Clan's secret realm had been lifted, the significance of the Immortal Essence City's existence was greatly reduced. These Immortal Essence Guardians couldn't keep suppressing their strength and play house with the little guys of the Spirit Stream realm. The ancestors' sacrifice for justice couldn't be forgotten, and their contributions to 9 regions shouldn't be ignored. However, how to save them had become a sore point for Lu Yi until he saw Li Shang at the auction. Lu Yi turned to look at Li Shang again and bowed solemnly. "Fellow Taoist, please point out a way out for the Immortal Essence City." Li Shang pondered for a moment and looked at Zhang Zishan. "Can I go into the soul pool and take a look first?" Zhang Zishan stretched out his hand. "Please." Li Shang flashed into the soul pool. Yaya also ran to the edge of the soul pool and poked her head out to take a look, looking very curious. Then she jumped down, but Lu Yi grabbed her by the collar in midair, making her dance for joy. After waiting for a moment, Li Shang revealed himself from the soul pool and said, "It seems that you have been able to survive for so many years because of the nourishment of the soul-cleansing water in the soul pool and also because you have left your soul imprints in the soul pool. Therefore, as long as the soul pool doesn't dry up, you will be immortal." Zhang Zishan nodded. "Fellow Taoist has good eyesight. That is indeed the case. When this realm suffered a disaster, we thought of many ways to find this way." Li Shang looked sad. Being immortal sounds good, but it may not be good. Moreover, all of this relies on the soul pool. If the soul pool dries up one day, all of you will die together with it. Moreover, because of the limitations of the soul pool, your cultivation can't grow, and you will forever be stuck at the moment when you were alive. Lu Yi heard this and asked, "Is there a solution?" Li Shang had seen so many things and said so much, so there should be some clues. Li Shang said, "There is only one solution. Let me take them to the soul race's ancestral land. Only there can they be transformed into true soul race members and get rid of the shackles at hand." The soul race's ancestral land was a mystery throughout the entire starry sky. It was impossible for ordinary people to find it, let alone enter it. The cultivators of Immortal Essence City could barely be regarded as soul race members, and because of the agreement with Lu Yi, Li Shang came up with this idea. Otherwise, she would never bring outsiders to the soul race's ancestral land. Lu Yi bowed deeply. "Please help us, fellow Taoist. No matter what price you have to pay, this realm is willing to accept it." Li Shang shook her head and said, "You saved me from the sea of bitterness, and I have no way to repay you. They are also my clansmen, so I should save them. Taking them to the ancestral land is not a problem, but there is a problem at hand." Zhang Zishan's expression turned solemn. "Please speak, fellow Taoist." Li Shang said, "You left your soul imprints in the soul pool, so unless I take the entire soul pool away, there is no way to take you all away." Lu Yi asked, "Can't the soul imprints be removed?" Li Shang said, "It is not difficult to remove them, but after removing them, they will become rootless trees and water without a source. They will not be able to survive for long." Chapter 1577. The reason why the Immortal Essence Guards of Immortal Essence City could exist for so many years was because of the Soul Pond. The Soul Pond contained the entire 9 regions' soul-cleansing water, which was the foundation of their immortality, but now it had become a hindrance. Once the soul seals they left in the Soul Pond were stripped away, they would not be able to last long without the support of the Soul Pond. Hearing this, Lu Yi also felt a bit awkward. He really didn't know how to solve the current situation. While he was thinking, he suddenly saw Li Shang's thoughtful expression, as if he wanted to say something but hesitated. He quickly asked, "Does fellow Taoist have any ideas?" Li Shang was silent for a moment and then said, "In fact, it's not difficult to solve this problem. Your soul seals rely on the soul pond, so the soul pond can't be taken away, so you just need to find a suitable object to rely on as a carrier. Please enlighten me, fellow Taoist." Zhang Zishan looked solemn. Li Shang said, "The simplest way is to let the many soul bodies of this city hide in other people's spirit seas. In this way, they should be fine in a short time." Lu Ye's eyes lit up when he heard this. He suddenly remembered that Li Shang sometimes hid in his own spirit sea. Since Li Shang could do it, then the Immortal Essence Guard should be able to do it too. Li Shang, however, changed the topic. "But in this way, there will be a certain burden on the carrier, because they are different from the real soul race. They need to draw a certain amount of spiritual energy from the carrier to maintain themselves." Lu Yi said, It doesn't matter. There are many star mansions in this world. Although there are many immortal essence guards, the pressure on each person should not be great. Moreover, I also have spirit refining grass. When the time comes, as long as I distribute some, they can replenish their spiritual energy at any time. Li Shang smiled bitterly and said, if that's the case, then there's no problem, but outsiders are not allowed to enter the ancestral land of my soul race. Even if we use this method, we can't take them to the ancestral land. Lu Yi was startled. He had forgotten about this. If he really did as he said just now, then he would need a lot of star mansions to follow Li Shang to the ancestral land of the soul race and then settle down the immortal essence guards. But now, they couldn't even enter the ancestral land of the soul race, so how could they settle down the immortal essence guards? Can't you make an exception? Lu Yi asked. I can guarantee that even if the constellations of this world enter your ancestral land, they will definitely keep their mouths shut and not reveal a single word to the outside world. Li Shang shook his head. These are the rules of the soul race. I am just a star constellation, I cannot make such a big decision. If I rashly bring outsiders to my race, the best result would be you being imprisoned for life, or even killed by the masters of my soul race. Lu Yi frowned. Things were getting a little difficult. Zhang Zishan suddenly said, as for the carrier, fellow Taoist, can you take a look at this and see if it's usable? With that said, Zhang Zishan suddenly reached out and grabbed at the soul pool. Immediately after, the clouds inside the soul pool churned and an item flew out and was caught by Zhang Zishan. Lu Yi looked over and realized that this thing looked familiar, as if he had seen it somewhere before. After taking a closer look, he suddenly remembered. Isn't this that myriad soul banner? Li Shang also recognized this item and immediately showed a look of hatred and disgust, asking in confusion, how did you get such an evil item like the myriad soul banner? Feeling his emotions, Lu Yi hurriedly explained, fellow Taoist, don't misunderstand. This item was not refined by the cultivators of this world. It was seized from someone else back then. The source of this thing was the woman named Sun Ying from the Qinglidao world. At that time, the people from the Qinglidao world found the Wuxia continent and broke in to kill. Many cultivators from the 9 states who were training themselves on the Wuxia continent were killed by Sun Ying and the others, and their souls were refined into the banner. Later, Lu Yi brought people from the 9 states to rush over, killed Sun Ying, and seized the myriad soul banner. After that, the 2 Yueyao from the Qinglidao world brought people to settle the score. As a result, Lu Yi killed Qin Yuandai with a red talisman and was chased by Tang Jun. At that time, after killing Sun Ying and seizing the myriad soul banner, Lu Yi did not know what to do with it. If he destroyed it, the souls of the cultivators from the 9 states would also disappear. However, it was not appropriate to keep it. Just as Nian Yuxian needed to return to the 9 states to bring people to support, Lu Yi asked Nian Yuxian to bring back the myriad soul banner. Now it seemed that Nian Yuxian should have obeyed his instructions and left it in the 9 states. Then, it was sent to the Immortal Essence City by Xiao Jiao and placed in the soul pool. If Zhang Zishan had not taken it out, Lu Yi would have almost forgotten about it. Seeing the myriad soul banner, Lu Ye's eyes lit up. Li Shang said that the Immortal Essence Guards needed a carrier after their soul seals were stripped. It was not appropriate to let the cultivators of the 9 states become their carriers, so the myriad soul banner seemed to be a good choice. If so, then the unintentional act of that year could now become a life-saving straw. After listening to Lu Ye's explanation, Li Shang's expression eased. The myriad soul banner was as notorious as the insect race and the blood race in the starry sky. Any cultivator who cared about their reputation would not casually refine this thing, because if this thing wanted to grow, it needed to kill too many people. Many times, it even needed to sacrifice the lives of a realm to make the myriad soul banner grow. As a member of the Soul Clan, Li Shang especially hated this thing, because in ancient times, many cultivators who refined the myriad soul banner liked to catch the Soul Clan and use them as the main soul in the banner, which could increase the power of the myriad soul banner by 20%. If it's this thing, I can give it a try. Li Shang took the myriad soul banner in his hand and looked at it carefully, then looked at Zhang Zishan. May I ask the city lord, how many soul bodies are there in this city? Zhang Zishan immediately reported a number, 13,229 people. Lu Yi was shocked. Although he knew that there were many immortal essence guards in the immortal essence city, he did not expect there to be so many people. Regardless of the cultivation level of these ancestors, they were all willing to sacrifice their lives for righteousness. It was hard to believe what kind of environment they were in at that time that made the whole city united. Li Shang said, "The number is a bit too much. The quality of this myriad soul banner is not very good. The refiner's technique is flawed, so it probably can't accommodate so many soul bodies. I will take this banner first. It may be useful after I refine it." Lu Yi was surprised. "You know how to refine the myriad soul banner?" Li Shang said, "There are some records in the clan. Back then, my soul clan clashed with many cultivators who refined the myriad soul banner, and even caused a great battle. In that battle, my clan suffered great losses, but we also seized many myriad soul banners, so it shouldn't be a problem to refine it again. However, I need some help from your cultivators." After all, she was not a true weapon refiner. Even if the refining technique of the myriad soul banner was special, she still needed someone to help her. "No problem. Tell me who you need, and I will ask them to cooperate with you." Lu Yi quickly agreed. There were now 1,500 people in the 9 continents constellation, and there were talents in all aspects. Even if they could not be the main force, it would not be a problem to help out. Zhang Zishan bowed deeply to Li Shang. "If the problem of the immortal essence guards can be solved, then you will be the benefactor of all the immortal essence guards. If you have any orders in the future, the immortal essence guards will not dare to disobey." Li Shang smiled and shook his head. "You don't have to be so polite. Like I said, strictly speaking, you are also my clansman. The number of the Soul Clan is not large. If I can bring you to the ancestral land, it will be a good thing for my Soul Clan." The matter of the immortal essence city was solved, and Lu Yi was in a good mood. It was not in vain that he had spent so much to bid for Li Shang. Now, there was finally a good result, and he could finally answer to the immortal essence city and the immortal essence guards. As for the fact that this secret realm would never reappear after the immortal essence guards left, it was just a small matter. This secret realm was originally used for spirit stream realm cultivators to gain experience, so it did not matter if there was one less place. He took Li Shang and Yaya out of the immortal essence city, and carefully discussed with Li Shang for a while. Then he began to send messages everywhere, gathering suitable people to help Li Shang refine the myriad soul banner. According to Li Shang's estimation, it would take about a month. After sending Li Shang to one of the most famous armor refining sects in the 9 states and settling him down properly, Lu Yi returned to the Jade Blood sect with Yaya. As soon as they entered Ao Mountain, their hearts skipped a beat and they looked forward with joy. Yaya felt something in her heart. Riding on Lu Ye's neck, she shaded her eyes with her hands and looked forward. In front of them, a white light flashed from the direction of the central guarding peak. Its speed was extremely fast and it was full of vigor. In the blink of an eye, it came close and revealed its figure. It was a big tiger whose whole body was as white as jade. The word, King, was clearly visible on its forehead, and it was fierce. Its 2 tiger eyes showed an orange-yellow luster, as deep as an ancient pool. After not seeing him for many years, Hoopa had obviously become bigger and more familiar. The chi and blood around his body were abundant, and his demonic power was rolling. The aura emitted from his body had clearly reached the level of a constellation. Riding on Hoopa was a petite figure. Almost at the moment Hoopa stopped, the figure leaped into the air and pounced straight at Lu Yi. Lu Yi laughed and opened his arms, hugging the figure in his arms. Then he spun several times on the spot, almost throwing off Yaya who was riding on his neck. In a panic, Yaya hurriedly grabbed Lu Ye's hair with both hands. The little person hugged Lu Yi very tightly, as if she wanted to melt into his body. All of a sudden, the little one began to wail loudly. He was extremely sad. Lu Ye's heart ached and he hurriedly comforted her. "Don't cry, don't cry. Such a beautiful little girl won't look good when she cries." He ignored him, still crying heartbreakingly. After a long while, she choked with sobs and asked, Lu Yu, where did you go? Although after Lu Yi was promoted to a constellation, they were rarely together. Even if they were not together, Yi could at least know about Lu Ye's recent situation. However, since 6 years ago, there had been no news of Lu Yi. This feeling made her feel terrified and uneasy. Even if she could confirm that Lu Yi was still alive through Hu Po's life and death, without seeing Lu Yi, her heart would always feel empty. The only thing she could do was cultivate, and cultivate again, hoping that one day she could become strong enough to personally enter the starry sky to find traces of Lu Yi. Therefore, since she was promoted to a constellation, she had never returned to 9 regions. She had always been wandering the starry sky with Hu Po and a few other companions, searching for spiritual jades to cultivate. Not long ago, there was suddenly news that Lu Yi had returned to 9 regions. Only then did they rush back without stopping. Chapter 1578. Under normal circumstances, Yi and her team would not have been able to return to the 9 states in such a short time because they were too far away. Fortunately, they managed to contact the star ship of the 9 states on their way back, which saved them a lot of time. He wailed. No matter how Lu Yi comforted her, it was useless. He could only hug her tightly and let her vent her feelings. Hu Po moved closer and nuzzled his head against Lu Ye's body. His throat was making purring noises. This was how this guy acted when he was acting spoiled. Yaya's eyes lit up. She clapped and cheered, "Big tiger!" With that, she climbed down from Lu Ye's neck and rode on Hu Po's back. Hu Po wriggled a few times, then ignored her. Hu Po was very intelligent. If it were anyone else, he would definitely not be happy. However, both he and Yi had already received information about Yaya from Wuxia. They knew that although this child looked like a child, she was actually a sunshine warrior. Who would dare to offend her? Yaya lay comfortably on Hu Po's back, a satisfied expression on her face. He cried for a long time before she slowly stopped. However, she was still choking with sobs. Lu Yi grabbed her arms and placed her in front of him. "Let me see." He pouted and stared at him. Suddenly, she burst into laughter. She looked lovely in the rain. "You're still so small." Lu Yi looked at her with a smile. He was annoyed. "So what if I'm small?" "I'm small." She knew that Lu Yi had 2 hobbies, big and round. This was probably something she would never be able to touch in her life. Being small has its advantages. Lu Yi rubbed her little head. "I'll bring you with me wherever I go. I can put you in my pocket." His eyes lit up. "You said it. If you dare to go back on your words, I'll. After thinking for a long time, she could not think of anything to threaten Lu Yi. Suddenly, she had an idea. "I'll ask Sister Wuxia to deal with you." Lu Yi's face suddenly turned bitter. He said earnestly, "My name is Lu Yi, and yours is Louis. We are a family. Wuxia is an outsider. If we have any problems, we can solve them internally. Don't bother outsiders. It will make our Lu family seem insensible." Yi was even happier when she heard that. Her eyes turned into crescents. "You have a point." While the 2 of them were talking, a few more silhouettes flew over from the Jianghu peak. Lu Yi put his arm around Yi's shoulder and looked over with a smile. When he came back, he didn't see Yi and the others, so he asked Shueyuan and learned from second senior sister that the members of the 9th team of the law division of the military province had been promoted to constellation 2 years ago. They went to the starry sky together and hadn't returned yet. However, Shueyuan told him not to worry. Although Yi and the others had not returned, there would be some news sent back every few days. Many of the 9 prefectures' constellations who were wandering the starry sky had seen them. Now that he saw them, he realized that the members of Team D9 had indeed been promoted to constellation. Li Baxian, Feng Yuechun, Xiao Xinghe, Zhu Jia, and Lin Yinxiu were all here. Lu Yi even saw Lan Qiyu. In more than 6 years, these people's cultivation had grown tremendously. Firstly, their aptitudes were excellent. Needless to say, Li Baxian and Feng Yuechun's aptitudes were top-notch in the entire 9 prefectures, especially Li Baxian. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to dominate the spirit stream battlefield for so many years. Zhu Jia was even more talented. Lin Yinxiu was Gan Wudong's daughter, so naturally, she was like a tiger father, like a dog daughter. Lan Qiue was even more special. As a human, she could actually become a member of the blood clan after refining the sacred blood. This talent wasn't something that just anyone could have. Among them, the one with the worst aptitude was probably third senior brother Xiao Xinghe. However, that was only relatively speaking. In addition, after the 9 prefectures became a large domain, the cultivation environment was better than before. It was naturally easier to accumulate one's foundation, which led to the scene of them all being promoted to constellation. Not only them, but many constellation seeds and constellation seeds emerged in the new generation. In the next 10 years, the 9 prefectures would give birth to even more constellation. Looking at everyone, Lu Yi had a smile on his face. He cupped his fists and bowed, "Greetings, senior brothers and sisters." Everyone returned the greeting. Li Baxin smiled and said, "Little junior brother, you left for so many years." He was worried sick. He hurriedly said, "Fourth senior brother and the others were also very worried about you, but they didn't say anything. Instead, they often came to comfort her. Senior brothers and sisters, thank you for your concern." Lu Yi had a guilty expression. However, at that time, he was being chased by Tang Jun and was stranded in the insect path. He didn't have any chance or channel to send a message. He wasn't the only one who had been worried about Lu Yi all these years. Hua Xi might have appeared calm when Lu Yi returned, but in reality, she just didn't show it. Her worries over the past few years were no less than anyone else's. "It's good that you're back." Li Baxin nodded. "Don't just stand here. Let's talk when we get back." Second senior sister and junior sister Hua Xi just made a lot of delicious food. "Let's talk while we eat." Lu Yi winked at Li Baxin. "I brought back a lot of good wine from Jianghu." Li Baxin's appetite was immediately aroused. "Then I'll have to try it." On Shoujin Peak, Shui Yuan and Hua Xi had indeed cooked a table of delicacies. Lu Yi took out a spiritual fish he caught from the 10,000 Elephant Sea from his storage ring and gave it to them, asking them to think of a way to cook it. Outside, everyone sat in a circle, stuffing food into their mouths as they chatted with each other. However, most of the time, it was Lu Yi who was talking. Everyone listened. The more they understood, the more they yearned for a place like Jianghu. They couldn't wait to go over and see the magnificent scene over there. The banquet lasted for a day and a night. The wine Lu Yi brought back from Jianghu was almost finished. Even the spirit fish and shellfish caught from Jianghu were mostly eaten by everyone. After eating and drinking to their fill, everyone found a place to meditate and cultivate. There was no other reason. The spirit fish and shellfish brought back by Lu Yi contained a lot of energy. If they didn't hurry and refine it, it would inevitably cause some wastage. Li Shang led a few constellations of the 9 regions who were proficient in refining tools to refine the 10,000 soul banner. A large number of constellations gathered in the 9 regions garrison hall every day to discuss the allocation of quotas for Jianghu. There were too many people who wanted to go to Jianghu, but there were only so many quotas. Who would go and who would stay became a problem. Moreover, not only in the 9 regions but also in the Wushuang continent, there were even fewer quotas to be allocated. On the green bamboo peak, Hupo was sleeping soundly on the ground. Yaya was lying on its back with her arms and legs spread out. She was sleeping soundly, saliva dripping from the corner of her mouth. He stood at the side to watch over them. In the empty square in front, 3 figures were moving and intertwining. It was Li Baxin and Xiao Xinghe working together to fight against Lu Yi. Lu Ye's long saber was not unsheathed, and his cultivation was suppressed to the early stage of constellation, the same level as 3rd and 4th senior brother. Even so, he seemed to be at ease in a 1 versus 2 situation. In the middle of the fight, Li Baxin and Xiao Xinghe suddenly stopped, revealing a thoughtful expression. "Little junior brother, is this the leaping technique you mentioned?" Li Baxin asked. "Yes." Lu Yi nodded. In the inheritance, he had only comprehended Qing Li's bearing fangs and Yan Shi's leaping technique. He had yet to fully comprehend the essence of Qing Fu's dual sabers. Compared to Qing Li's bearing fangs, Lu Yi felt that Yan Shi's leaping technique was more beneficial in battle. It was like lightning coming and going freely. If he encountered an enemy he couldn't beat in the starry sky, Qing Li's inheritance might not be useful, but Yan Shi's leaping technique would definitely be useful. If he couldn't beat the enemy, he could always run. Lu Yi intended to impart the subtleties of leaping technique to Li Baxin and Xiao Xinghe, which led to this fight. Xiao Xinghe was the same as him, a weapon cultivator who used sabers. There was no doubt that he was suitable to cultivate leaping technique. Although Li Baxin was a sword cultivator, he was still a weapon cultivator in the end. If he could learn a thing or two from leaping technique, it would only be beneficial to him. Interesting. Li Baxin's eyes lit up. He was obviously interested. He and Xiao Xinghe had also used leaping technique during the battle, but it was completely incomparable to Lu Ye's leaping technique. Again. Xiao Xinghe raised his long blade, and as soon as he finished speaking, he had already rushed towards Lu Yi. Although he was only a star constellation, he could tell that this technique was extremely profound. Lu Yi had spared no effort to personally accompany and teach them, so how could he miss such an opportunity? Days passed, but the three figures on Green Bamboo Peak never stopped leaping. Shui Yuan and Hua Ci would cook delicacies with the spirit fish and shellfish that Lu Yi brought back from the 10,000 Elephant Sea every day. In just a short month, everyone felt that they had gained a lot. Li Shang sent a message that the 10,000 soul banner had been reforged. He needed to make another trip to Immortal Essence City. Lu Yi hurried over and brought Li Shang back to Immortal Essence City. Compared to a month ago, Immortal Essence City was much quieter now. The secret realm had been closed, and the spirit stream realm cultivators who came in to gain experience had also left. Beside the soul pool of the city lord's mansion, Li Shang directly took out the 10,000 soul banner. Lu Yi looked over and found that the reforged 10,000 soul banner didn't look much different from before. Of course, this was only on the surface. He didn't understand the mystery behind it, so he couldn't see much. The banner fluttered, and Li Shang nodded slightly at Zhang Zishan. Zhang Zishan took a long step forward and gently stroked the soul pool. Ripples spread everywhere. Then, illusory figures rushed out from the soul pool and entered the 10,000 soul banner in Li Shang's hand. At first glance, this scene was quite gloomy. After all, the souls sleeping in the soul pool were all souls that had lost their physical bodies. However, these souls were all ancestors who had sacrificed their physical bodies for the peace of the 9 regions. Thinking about it this way, it wasn't too gloomy. There were more than 10,000 souls, and it lasted for half an hour before it ended. When the last soul rushed into the 10,000 soul banner, Lu Yi felt that the dense black gas on the 10,000 soul banner was so thick that it was almost solid. Zhang Zishan bowed to Li Shang. "I'll have to trouble you, fellow Taoist." Li Shang nodded slightly. "Don't worry, City Lord. I will bring you to the ancestral land of my soul clan." Only then did Zhang Zishan enter the 10,000 soul banner and disappear. Chapter 1579. The matter of the Immortal Essence City had been resolved. The issue of the quota for the 9 continents constellation to go to the 10,000 Elephant Sea had almost come to a conclusion in these days of discussions and quarrels. Although this result did not satisfy everyone, it was still a result that everyone approved. When the cultivators of 9 continents had a firm foothold in the Wanxiang Sea in the future, others could go there if they wanted to. The journey of a few years was actually nothing to the constellations. In front of the 9 continents Guardian Hall, many constellations gathered. Star boats and tiger shark warships floated in the air. With Lu Ye's order, everyone boarded the ships. Those who were qualified to board the ships were jubilant, while those who were not were full of envy. A total of 7 planetary ships and 3 tiger shark warships had set off from the land of the 9 prefectures. In addition, there were 3 planetary ships and 2 tiger shark warships waiting for them on the Wushuang continent. The fleet of the 9 prefectures would consist of 10 planetary ships and 5 warships. Louis had bought 30 star boats and 10 tiger sharks from the Wushuang island. The fleet was only a part of them, and the rest were naturally left in 9 continents and Wuxia continent. Firstly, it was for the cultivators of this world to explore the starry sky, saving them time and energy. Secondly, if they wanted to sail to the Wanxiang Sea in the future, they would have a star boat to use. Lu Yi had not only left star boats and warships in this world, but also left 5 million spiritual jades in the 9 continents Guardian Hall as a backup. With such a large amount of spiritual jades, as long as the cultivators of 9 continents used them sparingly, they should be able to use them for a long time. Moreover, they were not people who would sit around and do nothing. They could search for their own needs in the starry sky. Only in some special circumstances would they need to use the spiritual jades left by Lu Yi. Lu Yi also left a large number of twin-chi-linked formation discs for the cultivators of 9 continents to form formations to fight the enemy. There were also star charts to the Qingli Dao world and the Wanxiang Sea, and even some of the trunks of the reincarnation tree. Everything was ready. Lu Yi looked down at the many constellations of 9 continents who were sending him off. He cupped his fists and said, "Thank you for taking care of this world." Pang Jin, who was the leader, grinned and said, "Don't worry. With us here, there won't be any trouble in this world. On the other hand, when you go out, you have to endure what you have to endure. Don't force yourself in everything. If it's really difficult to survive outside, come back early." It was just like how the elders would exhort their children when they went out to make a living. Lu Yi nodded and jumped onto the star boat. With a wave of his hand, he said, "Let's go." All the star boats and battleships turned around and flew out of the 9 provinces at an increasing speed. With Pang Zhen as the leader, the many star mansions that stayed behind cupped their fists and sent him off. They shouted in unison, "May fortune prevail and turn misfortune into blessings." On the star boat, Lu Yi lowered his head and looked down at the 9 prefectures. He raised his hand and pressed it on his battlefield imprint. His divine will surged as he said, "Little 9, I'm leaving. Please take care of the 9 prefectures." In the past few days, when he was preparing to leave, he had looked for Little 9 several times, wanting to bid farewell to it, but Little 9 had completely ignored him. Lu Yi naturally knew that it was impossible for Little 9 to not notice his call, and the reason it ignored him was probably because it did not want him to leave. In the entire 9 states, besides Lu Yi, only Zhang Zishan knew of its existence. In the past, when Lu Yi was not around, it could occasionally chat with Zhang Zishan. Now that Zhang Zishan had been taken into the 10,000 Soul Banner and was about to be taken to the Spirita's ancestral land, the only person it could communicate with was Lu Yi. If Lu Yi also left, then Little 9 could only guard the 9 prefectures by itself. It was like a clingy little child, but there were some things that had to be done. Although it was safe to stay in the 9 prefectures and there were not many dangers outside, since the 9 prefectures had been promoted to a large realm, it would eventually be connected to the starry skies. Only when the realm's foundation became stronger would it have enough strength to protect itself when it encountered danger in the future. After waiting for a while, there was still no response from Little 9. Lu Yi sighed. He knew that the child was angry, so he did not force it. But at this moment, Little 9's voice suddenly sounded in his ear. "Then when you come back next time, bring back some good food." Lu Yi was stunned for a moment before he realized that the good food Little 9 was talking about was the World Eater Beast Crystal Core he had taken out last time, as well as the pink strange object he had obtained from the Nebula Grave Bag. "Okay, I'll bring more for you next time." Lu Yi immediately agreed. He probably could not count on the things in the Nebula Grave Bag, but if there was no other way, he would think of a way to bring back the World Eater Beast Crystal Core. He could not disappoint Little 9. Although the World Eater Beast Crystal Core was rare, as long as he thought of a way, it was still possible to obtain it. "Then it's a deal." "It's a deal," Lu Yi replied. Suddenly he sensed something. When he looked down, he saw a rabbit standing up on a mountain not far from the 9 provinces guard palace, looking in their direction. Lu Yi waved his hand in its direction, and the planetary ship rushed out of the clouds and into the starry sky. The fleet entered the starry sky. The cultivators piloting the planetary ships were fine, as they obediently piloted the planetary ships according to the star chart. However, The cultivators assigned to the Tiger Shark warships were excited. After all, none of them had ever played with a warship before, so they were all familiarizing themselves with the various functions of a warship. This caused the 3 warships escorting the fleet to be like naughty children, chasing each other and dodging as they sailed. The Tiger Shark warships were small warships that could be piloted by 3 to 5 people. Compared to those expensive large warships, although their defense and attack were slightly inferior, they were more agile. At first, everyone was not familiar with the warships, so it was inevitable that they were a little shaky at piloting them. However, as they gradually familiarized themselves with the warships, the 3 Tiger Shark warships became much more agile. Lu Yi stood on the deck and watched quietly. The planetary ship he was on was basically filled with people he was close to, including Wuxia, Shueyuan, and the members of Team D9. Hupo was lying at his feet, and Yaya was curled up in Hupo's arms. Beside them were Yi and Li Shang. Perhaps because they were both souls, Li Shang had a natural sense of closeness to Yi. Although they had only met for a few days, the two of them had already become familiar with each other. After interacting with Li Shang for such a long time, Lu Yi had a rough understanding of Li Shang's temperament. She was not the kind of person who could quickly become familiar with strangers. Take Wuxia and Shueyuan for example. Although Li Shang would occasionally chat with them, they were not close. However, Li Shang's attitude towards Yi was completely different. She truly treated her as one of her own. Lu Yi faintly felt that there might be some other reasons. After chatting for a while, Yi called Hupa and prepared to cultivate. Since she had advanced to Constellation Realm 2 years ago, Yi thought that the gap between her and Lu Yi would become smaller. However, when Lu Yi returned this time, he was already at the late stage of Constellation Realm. Not only did the gap between their cultivations not become smaller, it had become much larger. Therefore, he did not dare to slack off when it came to cultivation, and worked even harder than before. Hupa left and Yaya rubbed her sleepy eyes. She sat on the ground and looked around blankly for a while, then silently grabbed Lu Ye's pants and climbed up like a monkey. She squeezed into Lu Ye's arms, found a comfortable sleeping position, and closed her eyes again. Lu Yi held her with one hand and looked down for a while, then said, "Yaya has been a little sleepy recently." Although Yaya was always sleepy before, the situation was not so serious. Only after using sunshine would Yaya fall into a deep sleep. Most of the time, she was awake. But recently she was obviously different, especially when she was by Hupo's side. Almost as long as she was in contact with Hupa, she would fall asleep. Maybe she's recovering, and her sleepiness is just an external manifestation of her recovery. Li Shang guessed. Lu Yi nodded, but soon realized a problem. Say, if she recovers, will she do anything to us? Yaya was still sunshine after all. Now that her mind was damaged, she mistook him and Li Shang for her parents. When she recovers and recalls the past, what if she flew into a rage out of humiliation? What could Lu Yi use to block it? At that time, he and Li Shang would both be out of luck. Li Shang said, "Her mind is seriously damaged, she won't be able to recover in a short period of time. Moreover, this matter is not our fault. Even if she really recovers, she should know that it was her own initiative. Besides, you did save her life." That's the truth. Lu Yi agreed. When he saved Yaya, he had considered this. Li Shang hesitated for a moment, then changed the topic. "Do you know why Yaya is sticking to Hupa?" Lu Yi thought to himself, here comes the main topic, because he found that since Li Shang saw Hupa, she was very interested in Hupa, and quickly became familiar with Yi was also part of the reason. Instead of answering, he asked, "Do you know?" Li Shang nodded, then shook her head. "I don't know the specific reason, but Yaya has Sunshine's background. She is sticking to Hupa not only because he is likable, there must be a deeper reason. Maybe she instinctively feels that staying by Hupo's side can help her recover better." After a pause, she continued, "Hupa should have the blood of the white tiger. Do you know?" "I have a guess." The white tiger of the 4 sacred beasts was famous. How could Lu Yi not know? After all, the former 9 regions was the top region. Although it had declined for tens of thousands of years, some of the remnants of the former 9 regions could still be seen in the current 9 regions. Hu Po's blood should be passed down from generation to generation in the former 9 regions era. Lu Yi had come into contact with many tiger-type monsters, but there had never been a monster like Hu Po who could transform into a depressed spirit, so Lu Ye's speculation about Hu Po's blood was not a lie. Ordinary tiger-type monsters did not have such a magical ability, and only the legendary white tiger had such an ability. But guesses were guesses, and there was no way to confirm this fact. After all, he had never seen another white tiger. It is said that the white tiger is in charge of killing, and among the 4 sacred beasts, its killing power is the fiercest. Li Shang's leisurely voice came, but very few people know that the white tiger has a natural advantage over souls. What do you mean? Lu Yi asked humbly. Li Shang suddenly mentioning Hu Po was obviously not on a whim. These days she had been observing Hu Po, and since she said so, she obviously had a conclusion. Chapter 1580. In fact, there was no soul race in this world, because it's difficult for a pure soul to survive in the world for too long. The earliest soul race was like transformed from a strange beast like Hu Po. Li Shang said, "Your soul race was born like this?" Lu Yi was surprised. If that was the case, didn't it mean that the soul race also had a white tiger? Li Shang shook his head. That's not the case. The birth of the soul race relies on the existence of a divine object, which is also the treasure of my soul race. Our birth is different from Yi's. I'm just saying that the earliest soul race was in existence like Yi. Lu Yi understood and realized that he had misunderstood. Li Shang continued, "For Yi, Hu Po is her support, just like how the Immortal Origin Guards are now relying on the 10,000 soul banner. If Hu Po dies, Yi can't live alone, but on the other hand, nothing will happen to Hu Po. This is a different kind of symbiosis." Lu Yi nodded. He already knew about these things, just like the life origin technique that he and Hu Po had formed before. The reason why he wanted to remove the life origin technique was that he was afraid that one day he would be unlucky and implicate Hu Po and Yi. Fortunately, he had already deduced the life origin technique before, so after returning this time, Lu Yi had already removed it. Without the life origin technique, Lu Yi would not be able to borrow strength from Hu Po in the future, let alone use the beast transformation secret technique. Even if Lu Yi encountered any misfortune, he would not implicate Hu Po. This kind of strange symbiosis is of great benefit to Hu Po and Yi. Their cultivation can benefit each other at the same time. In other words, other people's cultivation is their own business, but their cultivation can bring benefits to each other. Lu Yi had noticed this long ago. This was also the reason why Hu Po and Yi could grow so quickly. The lack of resources was secondary, and the most important reason was that their cultivation was double the happiness. Don't look at how Hu Po and Yi's cultivation was on par with many constellations in 9 regions. As time passed, their cultivation would slowly pull apart. Lu Yi didn't expect Li Shang to know this secret. It seemed that Li Shang really understood the 4 sacred beasts, white tigers. This was obviously not the result of Li Shang's recent observation. A few days of observation could not have come to such a conclusion, unless he knew it long ago. Are you curious why I know this? Li Shang saw the change in Lu Ye's expression and smiled. Before Lu Yi could ask, he took the initiative to explain. If there is a race in this world that understands the white tiger, it is none other than my soul race. Since ancient times, my soul race has always been the most natural ally of the white tiger. To my race, the white tiger is an existence akin to a sacred beast. In the recorded history of my soul race, there have been a total of 6 sacred beasts like Hu Po. Each one of them has left behind an inextinguishable mark in the history of my soul race. The title of Holy Beast was not something that could be casually given. It required worship and sincere reverence from the bottom of one's heart. Lu Yi then recalled that even when Hu Po was very weak, the tiger's roar still had the miraculous effect of deterring the soul. There had once been an enemy whose mind had been shaken by Hu Po's tiger's roar and then killed by Lu Yi with a single slash of his blade. From the looks of it, all of Hu Po's abilities were related to the soul. The soul race was a soul to begin with, so they were the most knowledgeable about the soul. Fellow Taoist, I want to ask you for a favor. Li Shang's expression suddenly turned solemn. Lu Yi asked, What is it? I want to bring Hoopa back to the ancestral land. Li Shang said, Don't worry, friend. A sacred beast like Hoopa will only be worshipped by my race in the ancestral land. It will not be treated badly. Lu Yi ridiculed. Doesn't the ancestral land of the soul race not allow outsiders to enter? Forget about the immortal Yuan guards. They were soul bodies after all, and Li Shang could barely be considered clansmen. Bring them back, but Hoopa was not a soul body. It's not the same. Since the last sacred beast passed away, the ancestral land has not had a sacred beast for thousands of years. If I bring Hoopa back, my clansmen will only welcome me. Lu Yi finally understood why Li Shang was so interested in Hoopa these past few days. It turned out that he had this idea. If it was really like what Li Shang said, it was not impossible for her to bring Hoopa back. Moreover, Li Shang had helped him so much this time. The immortal Yuan guards would also be able to find a place to settle down in the future, so he should repay Li Shang. It was just that Hoopa was not his familiar. They had known each other since they were weak. They had gone through thick and thin together. Lu Yi regarded Hoopa and Yi as his own family. There were some things that he could not casually decide. What's more, if Hoopa was taken, Yi would inevitably follow. The two of them were inseparable, and Lu Yi himself was somewhat reluctant to part with them. Seeing Lu Yi hesitating, Li Shang quickly said, Friend, let's not talk about the benefits of Hoopa after entering the ancestral land. Let's talk about it. In the past few days, I have observed that Yi has taken the orthodox path of cultivation, but this is not the real cultivation method of my soul race. No one taught her before, but if she returns to the ancestral land with me, she can practice all kinds of secret techniques of my soul race. Her path of cultivation has been wrong. Even if her cultivation is successful in the future, it is impossible for her to exert her full potential. Don't you want to set things right? Lu Yi was stunned. Yi was already a star constellation, and now someone came to tell him that Yi had taken the wrong path, but thinking about it carefully, Li Shang should not be an alarmist. After all, there had never been an existence like Yi in Jianghu before. No one knew how she should cultivate correctly. Looking at it now, soul cultivation naturally had to focus on the soul. Taking the orthodox path of cultivation was indeed not right. If she could go with Li Shang to the ancestral land of the soul race, Yi would definitely benefit a lot. What benefits does Hoopa have? Lu Yi asked. Li Shang said, I can guarantee that the race will choose the most outstanding clansmen to live with it. In this way, its growth speed will increase, and correspondingly, Yi's growth speed will also increase. Lu Yi understood. So the previous sacred beasts of your soul race had reached a symbiotic relationship with the most outstanding clansmen, so that it would be mutually beneficial? Li Shang nodded. Yes, the more clansmen the sacred beast has, the faster it and its clansmen will grow, and the upper limit will be higher. In your records, how many clansmen can a sacred beast form a symbiotic relationship with? 9 clansmen. Li Shang replied in a deep voice. In that generation of the 9 clansmen, except for 4 who died in succession midway, the remaining 5 all advanced to sunshine. However, the number of clansmen the sacred beast can form a symbiotic relationship with varies. Some have more, some have less, and this may be related to the sacred beast's mood. If you want to form a symbiotic relationship, you must gain the sacred beast's trust and let it take the initiative. It is not something my soul race can force. This was not bad. The initiative was completely in Hoopa's hands, so they could avoid some dirty tricks in the dark. Fellow Taoist, let me bring Hoopa and Yi back to the ancestral land. For them, there are only benefits and no disadvantages. Li Shang looked at Lu Yi pleadingly. I believe you. Lu Yi nodded, but I can't make the decision. If you really want to bring them back, you have to ask their own opinions. If they are willing to go with you, I won't stop them, but if they are unwilling, there is no need to force them. Li Shang was overjoyed. As long as fellow Taoist has no objections, then there is no problem. Looking at the happy Li Shang, Lu Yi only felt that she was a little naive. On Hoopa's side, Yi was definitely the leader, and Yi definitely wasn't willing to be separated from him again. Therefore, Lu Yi felt that it would be difficult for Li Shang to persuade Yi to go to the Spirita's ancestral land. Li Shang left with light steps, obviously wanting to persuade Yi. However, Yi had just started cultivating, so she might have to wait for a while. Yaya was still sleeping in her arms. Lu Yi looked down. Although she did not know why Yaya was so attached to Hoopa, perhaps Hoopa really had some ability to help her recover. The 3 tiger shark warships ahead were still chasing and fleeing, having a lot of fun. Lu Yi turned around and entered her cabin. She put Yaya on the bed and sat next to her, the Pan Mountain saber across her knees. She immersed her mind and entered the blue hall. In the next moment, the saber light slashed continuously. The 9 prefectures were only half a month away from Wushuang continent. When the fleet arrived near Wushuang continent, there were already 3 star boats and 2 tiger shark warships waiting. The number of constellations on Wushuang continent was smaller than that of the 9 prefectures, so the quota allocated was much smaller. Lu Yi finally saw the sect master and eldest senior brother. The last time he passed by here, they were still exploring the starry sky and did not have the chance to meet. After the news spread, the sect master and the others hurried back to Wushuang continent to discuss the quota to follow Lu Yi to the Wanxiang Sea. Lu Yi led several people from the Jade Blood sect forward and bowed respectfully. He owed the sect master a debt of gratitude. If the sect master had not accepted him into the Blue Blood sect, Lu Ye's cultivation path would not have been so smooth. His master, Yun Xuechu, had also taught him. Lu Ye's Tao of Spirit Tattoos was basically taught by his master. Although he had surpassed his master, he relied more on the power of the talent tree. In terms of Tao of spiritual tattoos alone, Lu Yi felt that he could not compare with his master. The sect master and his master had a love-hate relationship for many years. Lu Yi had never been clear about the specific reasons, but he thought it had something to do with their experiences when they were young. Now that they were constellations, their relationship was much better. Moreover, the sect master looked younger now. Although the sect master was not old before, he was obviously a little older. But now, he looked like a middle-aged man in his 40s. After a long separation, they naturally had a lot to talk about. On the star boat, Lu Yi hosted a banquet to entertain the sect master and the others. The spiritual fish from the Wanxiang Sea won everyone's praise. The fleet did not stop at Wushuang continent. After meeting with each other, they continued to sail forward. The fleet of 10 star boats and 5 tiger shark warships was not large, but not shabby. Chapter 1581. A few days later, Lu Yi jumped out of the fleet and took out his star boat. He drove it with all his might and rushed towards the Qinglidao world. He wanted to go there first to see how the Qinglidao world was doing. He was not worried about the Qinglidao world, but the Jade Conch world. With the jade slip that Tang Jun gave him, he believed that Wu Zhuo would trust him and be willing to cooperate with him. However, he was not sure about the situation in the Jade Conch world. He did not have time to go to the Jade Conch world, so he could only ask Wu Zhuo to go there. Lu Yi did not know what the situation was, so he could only go and see. It would be best if the Jade Conch world was willing to go to the Wanxiang Sea with him. Cultivators from the same galaxy would have a natural closeness, and it would be easier for them to cooperate. Besides, if they wanted to establish themselves in the Wanxiang Sea, they would need Yu Yao from the Jade Conch world. If the Jade Conch world was not willing, Lu Yi would not force it. However, this was a good thing for any realm, so Lu Yi guessed that the Jade Conch world would be interested. No matter what, he would go there first to have a look. Although the fleet was not slow, it would be faster if he went alone. 2 months later, the Qinglidao world came into view. Lu Yi saw someone squatting outside the world from afar, looking at him in boredom. When he got closer, he realized that it was a girl he knew. Tang Xiaoye, what are you doing here? Lu Yi stopped the star boat and looked ahead. Tang Xiaoye bowed and said, "Greetings, senior brother. I was ordered by Hall Master Wu to wait for you here." Did Hall Master Wu have any orders? Tang Xiaoye said, "Hall Master Wu said that if you came, I should bring you to the Divine Martial Hall. This way, please." Lu Yi suddenly understood that Tang Xiaoye was arranged here to wait for him. This arrangement was reasonable. Lu Yi was close to Tang Jun, so Wu Zhuo asked Tang Xiaoye to come forward. It would be easier to talk to her. Lu Yi kept the star boat and flew into the realm with Tang Xiaoya. As he flew, he asked, "Is Hall Master Wu back?" "He returned half a month ago," Tang Xiaoya replied. "Do you know what's going on in the Jade Conch realm?" Lu Yi asked again. "I don't know the exact situation, but when Hall Master Wu returned half a month ago, Yu Luo also brought over 100 people. The leader was a late-stage Yu Yao." When Lu Yi heard this, he knew that this matter was settled. The people from Yu Luo must be going to the 10,000 Elephant Sea together. However, 100 people was not enough. This was understandable. Lu Yi and the others knew that they couldn't put all their eggs in one basket. The 9 continents constellation only brought a part of it over. Yu Conch must have thought the same. First, he would send 100 people to scout the way and see what the situation was like at the 10,000 Elephant Sea. If it was suitable, it wouldn't be too late to send more people. Moreover, the leader of the other party was a late-stage Moon Jade. Jade Conch should be quite concerned about this. Tang Xiaoya whispered again, "Senior brother, the martial arts hall master wanted me to inform you that Yu Yao from the Jade Conch sect has a rather arrogant personality. If she makes senior brother uncomfortable, please don't take it to heart. The martial arts hall master said that the people from the Jade Conch sect are all like that." Lu Yi nodded. Understood. This was what Tang Jun had told him when he first set off from the 10,000 Elephant Sea. It was not hard to understand. The Jade Conch sect was the leader of this galaxy after all. They were the most powerful. It was normal for them to act like a big brother. As they spoke, they arrived outside the main hall of the Divine Martial Hall. There were many constellations scattered outside the hall. It looked like they were all from the Jade Conch sect. Tang Xiaoya led Lu Yi to the outside of the hall. She cupped her fists and said, "Martial arts hall master, senior brother Lu Yi is here. Please." Wu Zhua's powerful voice came from inside the hall. Lu Yi nodded at Tang Xiaoya, who was beside him, and walked forward. However, he had only taken a few steps when someone suddenly blocked his path. That person was dressed in tight black clothes and held a long saber in his hand. He stood in front of the hall and looked at Lu Yi. Then, he raised his hands slightly and cupped his fists. "Jade Conch Chuan, please enlighten me." Lu Yi frowned. At the same time, Wu Zhua frowned and looked at a woman beside him. "Taoist Luan, what is the meaning of this?" After all, this was the Qingli Dao world. Lu Yi was considered a guest here. As the host, he had already invited him in. However, he was stopped by the people from the Jade Conch sect. Moreover, Chuan's attitude clearly showed that he wanted to fight with Lu Yi. Wu Zhua naturally knew that this was not Chuan's idea. This must have been secretly instructed by the woman opposite him. Therefore, Wu Zhua could not understand why. If the Jade Conch sect was not interested in the 10,000 Elephant Sea, they would not have sent a late-stage Yueyao cultivator here with 100 constellations. However, since they were already here, why would they cause trouble for no reason? A tall woman sat opposite Wu Zhua. She was dressed in a snow-white clothes-fitting dress. Her beautiful hair was tied into a high ponytail, which showed that she was very capable. This woman was the leader of the Jade Conch sect this time, Luan Xiaoa. Luan Xiaoa was a late-stage Yueyao cultivator. She was one of the top cultivators in the entire Jade Conch sect. The fact that she was leading the team to the 10,000 Elephant Sea showed how important this matter was to the Jade Conch sect. What the Jade Conch sect lacked the most was sunshine. However, it was not that easy for a Yueyao cultivator to reach the sunshine level. The late-stage Yueyao cultivators of the Jade Conch sect had been cultivating diligently for many years, but they had not made any progress. For this reason, they had traveled everywhere in search of an opportunity to break through, but to no avail. After all, the Jade Conch sect was located in a remote area. There were no good places to travel around. A place like the 10,000 Elephant Sea was undoubtedly their best opportunity. Compared to traveling everywhere, going to the 10,000 Elephant Sea and interacting with more Yueyao cultivators and even having the opportunity to learn from sunshine-level cultivators was something that they had always dreamed of. Therefore, when Wu Zhua came looking for them, the Jade Conch sect did not hesitate and decided that Luan Xiaoa would lead the team to the 10,000 Elephant Sea. Going to the 10,000 Elephant Sea was not only to find a way out for the constellations in their realm, but also to reach the sunshine level. As long as the Jade Conch sect could produce sunshine, the realm's level would be different. However, Wuxia did have her own reasons for secretly instructing Sichuan to do what he did. This was because if things were to develop according to plan, Lu Yi would definitely be in charge of this trip. After all, he had rushed all the way back from the 10,000 Elephant Sea. No one was more familiar with the route than him. However, the Jade Conch sect cultivators were arrogant. They even looked down on the people from the Qing Li Dao world. How could they allow a newly promoted realm to stand above them and order them around? It was normal for cultivators to spar with each other. If this Lu Ye from the Nine Heavens could recognize the strength of the Jade Conch sect cultivators, he would naturally give up the authority to lead. It was not convenient for Luan Xiao to do it herself. Shi Chuan was the best candidate because he was also a late-stage constellation cultivator. Moreover, like Lu Yi, he was a saber cultivator. Luan Xiao believed that as a late-stage constellation cultivator, this cultivator from the Nine Heavens realm would definitely not be Shi Chuan's match. That was what she thought, but she had another explanation for Wuxia. Luan Xiao's cold voice sounded, "Fellow Taoist Wu, you said that this Lu Ye grew up in the 10,000 Elephant Sea. His cultivation speed is very fast, and his strength seems to be quite good. He is even stronger than the late-stage constellation cultivators from your hall?" Wu Zhuo replied in a low voice. He had already heard about the Clear Wind realm from his own disciple, Zhou Dingtian. If Zhou Dingtian was not lying, then Lu Ye's strength was not just a little bit stronger than his. Words are no proof. You will know when you see it with your own eyes. We are all going to the 10,000 Elephant Sea. Let's see how strong the cultivators there are. If they are strong, then it means that the 10,000 Elephant Sea is worth looking forward to. If they are weak, then it means that the 10,000 Elephant Sea is just SOSO. We don't have to be too concerned. Wu Zhuo opened his mouth and wanted to remind her, but he did not say anything. He also wanted to see if Lu Ye's strength was as terrifying as Zhou Dingtian said. After all, no matter how strong a late-stage constellation cultivator was, there was still a limit. He had heard of this Shi Chuan. It was said that he was one of the strongest cultivators in this generation's Jade Conch constellation. It was because of this that he joined the team heading to the 10,000 Elephant Sea. The two of them conversed very quickly. After they finished speaking, they looked outside the hall. Although they could not see the situation outside, they could see everything outside with their divine senses. Outside the hall, Lu Ye looked at Shi Chuan, who suddenly jumped out. Although he was not sure of his intentions, there were only a few possibilities. Combined with the fact that this person came from the Jade Conch constellation, he had a rough guess. He probably wanted to see the strength of the 9 prefectures' cultivators before cooperating. Since that was the case, Lu Ye had no reason to back down. He secretly decided to perform well. Otherwise, if they cooperated later, the other party might not take the 9 prefectures' cultivators seriously. 9 heavens, Lu Ye replied. Shi Chuan slowly unsheathed the long saber at his waist. The saber was slightly different from the Pan Shan saber. It was slightly curved, but from the spiritual light on the saber, one could tell that it was an outstanding spiritual treasure. Shi Chuan held the saber with one hand and said with a serious expression, "We're both weapon cultivators, so let's make it simple?" "No problem." Lu Ye nodded, but he had no intention of unsheathing his saber. Shi Chuan waited for a few breaths. Seeing that Lu Ye still did not move, he could not help but frown. His aura began to circulate and rise. Many Jade Conch constellation cultivators looked over, as if they were waiting to watch a good show. Someone said, "Guess, how many sabers can this person take from Senior Shi?" Someone laughed and said, "Senior Shi started off on the path of body cultivator. His brute force is invincible among his peers. Although he later changed to weapon cultivator, he did not lose his body cultivator foundation. If this person fights with Senior Shi, I think he won't be able to take 5 sabers. It's not bad if he can take 5 sabers from Senior Shi. I bet he'll lose in 3 sabers. Although they are all late-stage constellation cultivators, not all of them are as strong as Senior Shi." In our Jade Conch constellation, there are not many constellation cultivators who can take 5 sabers from Senior Shi. Chapter 1582. I'm going to attack. Shi Chuan reminded him out of goodwill. His spiritual power surged as he pounced in front of Lu Yi like a bolt of lightning. The long saber in his hand slashed down fiercely. The power of this saber was not obvious on the surface, but it was completely contained within. It was clear that he had perfect control of his own power. Inside the grand hall, Wuxia nodded slightly. Among the constellations of this generation, Shi Chuan's strength was about the same as the others. However, Wuxia thought the most highly of Shi Chuan. This was because his control over his own strength was stronger than the others. As such, once he ascended to Yu Yao, there would be a natural gap between him and the others. Wuxia also felt the power of this saber and sighed in his heart. Jade Conch was still Jade Conch after all. Compared to Shi Chuan, there was indeed a big gap. If Shi Chuan's strength was placed in the Qing Li Dao world, he would be invincible among his peers. However, he was not more concerned about Shi Chuan, but Lu Yi, who was calm and composed. Even when Shi Chuan's long saber slashed down, his expression did not change at all. When Shi Chuan's long saber fell, there was a clanging sound. Lu Yi's long saber was unsheathed. There was no fanciful movement. It was almost the same way at the same angle and slashed out. Wuxia raised his eyebrows. The moment Lu Yi attacked, he noticed that Lu Yi's speed was faster than Shi Chuan's. Therefore, even if he attacked later, he did not fall into a disadvantage. Under everyone's gaze, the two long sabers collided. It was like two mortals slashing at each other, without the slightest burst of spiritual power. However, in the next moment, spiritual power burst out from where the long sabers collided, and a visible saber halo spread out in all directions. Many people in Jade Conch's constellations had a playful expression on their faces, as if they were watching a good show. However, at this moment, all their expressions froze and turned into astonishment. As the saber halo spread out, Lu Yi's body did not move. Instead, Shi Chuan's body shook violently and his body involuntarily leaned back. Some people could not suppress the shock in their hearts and could not help but exclaim. More people widened their eyes, unable to believe what they were seeing. In this collision, Shi Chuan was obviously at a disadvantage. This was simply unbelievable. What was even more unbelievable was that before Shi Chuan could stabilize his body, Lu Yi's second slash had already landed. Shi Chuan immediately roared and hurriedly raised his saber to block. However, after the second collision, his reaction was even more violent than before. His body leaned back much more. The floor under his feet turned into powder, and his 2 feet were deeply embedded in it. The power that was originally restrained and not obvious was now extremely lax. He suddenly raised his other hand and gripped his saber with both hands. He could only watch as Lu Yi's third slash swept over him. Then, he was sent flying back into the hall. The Jade Conch constellation, which was watching from all sides, was dumbstruck. The cultivator who said that Lu Yi wouldn't be able to withstand Shi Chuan's 3 strikes had a stiff expression on his face as the corners of his eyes twitched wildly. From the looks of it, Lu Yi indeed couldn't withstand the 3 strikes, but Shi Chuan was the one who couldn't withstand Lu Yi's 3 strikes. He suspected that Lu Yi had heard what he said and did it on purpose. If that was the case, then it was too terrifying. Shi Chuan was already one of the most powerful constellations in the Jade Conch constellation. However, such a powerful constellation had been sent flying by 3 strikes. Moreover, judging from Lu Yi's expression, his face wasn't red, and his heart wasn't beating fast. It was obvious that he hadn't used his full strength. Could a constellation be this strong? Was Yu Yao in disguise? Everyone stared at Lu Yi in shock. After witnessing this inconceivable scene with their own eyes, they felt as if a new door was slowly opening in front of them. Amidst the absolute silence, Lu Yi sheathed his saber. "Thank you for letting me win." He stepped forward and walked into the hall. Qing Fu's dual saber technique was indeed very powerful. Although Lu Yi hadn't passed Qing Fu's test yet, after so many trials, he had at least grasped some of its essence. Although Lu Yi had fought with only his saber, he had used some of the subtleties of Qing Fu's dual saber technique. The core of dual saber technique was that each strike was heavier than the last, and each strike was faster than the last. Lu Yi had struck Shi Chuan 3 times, and each strike was heavier and faster than the last. Of course, Shi Chuan couldn't withstand it. Even if he did, Lu Yi still had a 4th and 5th strike. There would be a time when he couldn't withstand it. When he entered the hall, he immediately saw Wuxia and a girl with a high ponytail. At this moment, the two Yu Yao stared at Lu Yi in shock. Although Wuxia had heard about the Clear Wind Realm from Zhou Dingtian and knew that Lu Yi was very strong, he hadn't expected him to be this strong. He had thought that even if Lu Yi could win against Shi Chuan, it would only be a small victory. But in the end, it was like the autumn wind sweeping away fallen leaves. One of the most outstanding constellations in the Jade Conch sect was like a child in front of him. Yuan Xiao hadn't expected such a ridiculous thing to happen in this world. When she was a constellation, her strength wasn't much weaker than Shi Chuan's. She had thought that this was about the limit of a constellation. Who knew that she was a frog at the bottom of a well? She had wanted Shi Chuan to suppress this Lu Yi of the 9 heavens. But now, not only had she failed to suppress him, she had even allowed him to show off his strength. She had clearly felt that Shi Chuan wasn't a match for him not only because his physical strength wasn't as strong as his opponent's, but also because their spiritual energy had collapsed upon contact. In other words, Lu Yi's spiritual energy was much purer and more vigorous than Shi Chuan's. His strength and spiritual energy were both inferior. How could he be a match for him in a head-on collision without any fancy moves? And when Lu Yi of the 9 heavens attacked, he had used the back of his blade. Shi Chuan might not have noticed this, but he couldn't hide it from her and Wuxia's perception. The reason why Lu Yi had used the back of his blade was because he was afraid of damaging Shi Chuan's spiritual artifact blade. The current Pan Mountain blade was transformed from the soldier race. Its sharpness couldn't be compared to ordinary spiritual artifacts. In such a collision, it was very likely that it would cause damage to the enemy's weapon. Lu Yi only wanted to display the strength of a cultivator of the 9 continents. He didn't want to make enemies, so he naturally had to restrain himself. Shi Chuan stood next to Yuan Xiao. The hand holding the blade was still trembling violently. The web between his thumb and forefinger had cracked, and blood was flowing out. His face was green and red. It was obvious that he hadn't recovered from his previous defeat. Before he attacked, he had considered whether he should leave some face for Lu Yi and not suppress him too ruthlessly. In the end, he didn't expect that he would be the one being suppressed. After a moment of silence, Shi Chuan took a deep breath and bowed to Lu Yi. "I've learned something." It was common for cultivators to lose in a battle. As one of the most outstanding constellations in Yuluo, Shi Chuan could quickly adjust his mentality and learn from it. It could be seen that he was a cultivator with a good temperament. Yuan Xiao also said, "Victory and defeat are commonplace. It's a blessing to be able to meet someone stronger than you. Only then can you have a goal to pursue in your cultivation." "Yes," Shi Chuan responded. He glanced at Lu Yi again before retreating. Lu Yi cupped his fists and bowed. "Greetings, fellow Taoist Wu." Wuxia returned the greeting. The last time he had met Lu Yi, he had wanted to test Lu Yi's strength and let him know if he was qualified to be friends with him. However, after witnessing Lu Yi's battle with Shi Chuan, he knew that once Lu Yi was promoted to Yu Yao, his strength would not be inferior to his own. It wouldn't be difficult for such a person to be promoted to Yu Yao. He indeed had the qualifications to be his friend. He took the initiative to introduce her to Lu Yi. "This is Yu Luo Xiao, fellow Taoist Luan." Lu Yi bowed again. "Greetings, fellow Taoist Luan." Yuan Xiao nodded slightly and didn't say anything. However, there was a hint of curiosity in her cold eyes. She had never seen a constellation like Lu Yi before. "Sit down and talk." Wuxia gestured with his hand. Lu Yi didn't stand on ceremony and sat down in the seat below Wuxia. Yuan Xiao sat opposite him. "Fellow Taoist, can I tell you about Qin Li and Yu Luo's arrangement?" Wuxia took the initiative to start the conversation. Lu Yi said, "Please go ahead, Hall Master Wu." Wuxia said, after you left last time, I made an urgent trip to Yu Luo's domain. Yu Luo's domain is very interested in the Thousand Elephant Sea. Hence, they decided to let fellow Taoist Luan lead the team and send out 100 constellations. Now, they are all waiting in my Qingli Dao world. As for my Qingli Dao world, I will also send out 100 constellations and 200 people from Yu Luo's domain. However, I have to stay in my own domain and can't accompany them. It's a pity that I can't witness the magnificence of the Thousand Elephant Sea with my own eyes. Yu Luo's domain sent out 100 constellations because they were cautious. After all, they knew nothing about the Thousand Elephant Sea. It was enough to have Yu Yao as their leader. Qingli Dao World only sent out 100 people. It was probably because they were limited by Yu Luo's domain and couldn't send out too many people. Wuxia continued, however, don't worry, fellow Taoist. 30% of the constellations sent by Qingli Dao World and Yu Luo's domain are in the late stage. The remaining 70% are in the middle stage. Lu Yi nodded and said, you can make your own decisions regarding the manpower of your two domains. This joint venture into the Thousand Elephant Sea is just the beginning. It won't be too late to make decisions based on the situation in the future when there are results. Wuxia said, I think so too. Luan Xiao suddenly said, how many people are the Nine Heavens realms sending out? Lu Yi said, a total of 300 people. However, they are all in the early stage of constellation. Therefore, their cultivation can't be compared to your two domains. Luan Xiao said, is the Nine Heavens realm really just a newly promoted large-sized domain? Previously, when she heard Wuxia say that the Nine Heavens realm was a newly promoted large-sized domain, she didn't doubt it. However, after seeing Lu Ye's strength and cultivation, she was puzzled. Now that she heard that the Nine Heavens realm was sending out all their early-stage constellations, she was really confused. Our domain has been promoted to large-sized domain for less than 10 years. Lu Yi replied seriously. Luan Xiao said, but fellow Taoist cultivation. A newly promoted large domain shouldn't have late-stage constellation realm cultivators. The Thousand Elephant Sea is a place where all kinds of miracles can happen. Lu Yi explained, not long after I was promoted to constellation, I wandered into the Thousand Elephant Sea. I also cultivated my cultivation there. It wasn't nonsense. He did cultivate in the Thousand Elephant Sea, but the method he used couldn't be imitated by others. As for miracles, Luan Xiao could interpret it however she wanted. Chapter 1583. Luan Xiao was visibly moved. A newly ascended large domain had produced a late-stage constellation cultivator in less than 10 years. This was all thanks to the 10,000 Elephant Sea. Furthermore, his cultivation was not just for show. His strength far exceeded that of a typical late-stage constellation cultivator. What she said to Wuxia earlier was just an excuse. However, after hearing Lu Ye's words, she could not help but have high hopes for the 10,000 Elephant Sea. Of course, she knew that not every constellation cultivator in the 10,000 Elephant Sea could be like Lu Yi. That was unrealistic. However, even if not all of them were like that, it was still something worth looking forward to. After pondering for a while, Luan Xiao said, when Cultivator Wu went to Jade Conch, he told me some things about the 10,000 Elephant Sea. I have some questions. I wonder if Cultivator Lu can answer them? Please ask. Lu Yi gestured with his hand. Luan Xiao said, Cultivator Wu said that there are many islands in the 10,000 Elephant Sea. There are deserted islands and spiritual islands. Cultivators from various galaxies occupy them. I want to ask, based on your experience, if the cultivators of the three realms go to the 10,000 Elephant Sea, will they be able to establish themselves? The 10,000 Elephant Sea was indeed a good place. Even though Luan Xiao did not know much about it, she knew the benefits of going there. However, the more benefits there were, the harder it would be to establish a foothold. This was because the competition would be extremely fierce. If they could not establish a foothold and wander around the 10,000 Elephant Sea, they would not be able to gain much. Instead, it would be more dangerous. There were too many galaxies in the 10,000 Elephant Sea. There was no lack of top-notch galaxies. She was not naive enough to think that Jade Conch could be ranked among the top. If she was alone with her late-stage Yu Yao cultivation, she would be able to wander around. No one would be able to bully her. However, she had brought 100 Jade Conch constellations with her this time. She had to consider more. Lu Yi heard her and said, "It should not be a problem to establish a foothold." Cultivator Tang Jun from the Green Dawn Dao world is currently serving as an elder on a spiritual island. He is guarding that spiritual island against invaders. The spiritual island has always been lacking manpower. If the cultivators of the three realms go there, they can make up for it. Luan Xiao heard and looked at Wu Zhuo, cultivator Wu did not mention this. Wu Zhuo spread his hands, senior brother Tang did not mention it. The jade slip that Tang Jun had given to Lu Yi didn't mention this matter at all. It only instructed Wu Zhuo to cooperate fully with Lu Yi. As long as he cooperated with Wu Zhuo, he would not mistreat the Green Dawn Dao world's cultivators. As long as they cooperated Wu Zhuo. It was only when Lu Yi mentioned it that Wu Zhuo found out that Tang Jun had actually become a consecrated elder of a spiritual island. He couldn't help but feel excited. Who would have thought that Tang Jun, who hadn't accomplished anything for so many years, would still be able to contribute to his old age? 2 than before, she to years to herself. 2 to her 999 she, that she 1002. To her people. She and Tang Jun. Which level? Lu Yi replied. At the very least, before he returned, it was a middle-grade spirit island. Now that a few years had passed, there was a high probability that it had grown into a superior-grade spirit island. As for whether it had grown into a top-grade spirit island, Lu Yi had no way of guessing. He knew what Luan Xiao was concerned about, so he said, "A typical middle-grade spirit island is sufficient to satisfy the daily cultivation needs of cultivators of the constellations." That's a good thing. Wu Zhuo nodded. Although the number of spiritual jades required for the cultivation of the constellations was not too high, over the years, the number of spiritual jades required would not be small. The amount of spiritual jades saved every year for the cultivation of the 500 constellations was at least a few 100,000. That was not a small amount. Most of the time, cultivators needed to go deep into the galaxy to search for spiritual jades. That would take a lot of time. However, cultivating on a spiritual island in the Wanxiang Sea would save them a lot of time. They could also avoid many potential risks. Of course, this was a good thing. Luan Xiao nodded. Her eyes were full of excitement. She could not wait to see the glory of a middle-level spiritual island in the Wanxiang Sea. She suddenly brought up another matter. 2 years ago, when a cultivator from this realm was traveling through the starry sky, he discovered a bug passage somewhere in this galaxy. According to fellow Taoist Wu, you and fellow Taoist Tang Jun entered the Wanxiang galaxy through this bug passage. I wonder if the bug passage you used to enter the Wanxiang galaxy is related to the one discovered by the cultivator from this realm? Lu Yi asked, "Where is the specific location of the worm passage that the cultivator from your world found?" Luan Xiao took out her star map and marked it, then tossed it to Lu Yi. Lu Yi checked it and nodded. This worm passage is the one that Tang Jun and I accidentally entered. The other end of the worm passage is connected to the Wanxiang galaxy. However, the worm passage has just been formed. I don't know when it will stabilize. Has your world explored it? Luan Xiao shook her head. You said it yourself. The worm passage is not stable yet, so no one dares to barge in. Lu Yi returned the star map. I'll have to trouble your world to send someone to guard the entrance of the worm passage. This is to prevent outsiders from entering our galaxy when the worm passage stabilizes. Moreover, if the worm passage stabilizes one day, we can directly enter the Wanxiang galaxy through it. There's no need to travel. He had originally planned to find an opportunity to discuss this with the people from the Jade Conch boundary. Now that Luan Xiao brought it up, it was exactly what he wanted. Luan Xiao heard him and said, "You're right." She turned to look at Wu Zhuo. I'll have to trouble you with this. I'll have to trouble you to make another trip to the Jade Conch boundary to clarify the pros and cons. I'll send someone to deal with this. It was no longer convenient for her to return to the Jade Conch boundary, so she could only ask Wuxia to find an opportunity to make another trip. Wuxia agreed without hesitation. This matter concerns our galaxy. I'm duty-bound. After a pleasant discussion, Luan Xiao felt that the time was right. She then looked at Lu Yi and said, I heard that the journey to the Wanxiang Sea is long. I wonder if you can let me take a look at the route on the star map. That way, I'll be prepared. She didn't mention this request at the beginning mainly because she was afraid that Lu Yi would refuse. If Lu Yi wanted to keep it to himself, it would be embarrassing for everyone. If Lu Yi rejected her request now, it wouldn't be a good idea to cooperate. Sure enough, Lu Yi took out the star map without hesitation. He stood up and handed it to Luan Xiao. This is the star map of the route to the Wanxiang Sea. Along the way, you'll have to pass through several dangerous places, 2 galaxies and a worm passage. Fellow Taoist, please check it carefully. During this trip, fellow Taoist strength reigns supreme. We'll have to rely on fellow Taoist strength. Luan Xiao took the star map in a daze. She didn't expect Lu Yi to be so easygoing. She didn't know whether to laugh or cry. If that was the case, then why did she arrange for Shichuan to suppress Lu Yi? From the looks of it, this Lu Yi of the 9 heavens was quite self-aware. She had a good impression of Lu Yi. After taking the star map and inspecting it, Luan Xiao immediately frowned. We'll have to pass through the chaotic explosion zone? She knew that place. It was a very dangerous place. She had been there before. She had accidentally been sucked in by the cosmic magnetic storm and almost died there. At that time, she was already Yu Yao. Even Yu Yao couldn't withstand the dangers of that place, let alone the lunar mansions. If the 500 lunar mansions of the 3 realms entered that place and were sucked in by the cosmic magnetic storm, the consequences would be unimaginable. Back then, she had intended to pass through the entire chaotic explosion zone. However, after encountering a few dangerous situations, she didn't dare to venture any deeper. Thus, she had no idea what lay beyond the chaotic explosion zone. Only after looking at the star map did she realize that beyond the chaotic explosion zone was the Thousand Hills Tomb. After passing through the Thousand Hills Tomb, she would have to pass through an unclaimed region of space before arriving at the Indefinite Galaxy. Logically speaking, the Jade Conch Galaxy and the Indefinite Galaxy weren't too far apart. Both galaxies had cultivators of at least Yu Yao's cultivation base. After so many years, they should have crossed paths. However, in reality, the Jade Conch Galaxy didn't know about the Indefinite Galaxy, and the Indefinite Galaxy didn't know about the Jade Conch Galaxy. In the end, it was because of the chaotic explosion zone. It could be said that this place was a natural barrier. No cultivator dared to barge in recklessly. How did you pass through the chaotic explosion zone? Luan Xiao stared at Lu Yi in disbelief. Logically speaking, it should be impossible for a lunar mansions to pass through such a dangerous place. However, Lu Yi had indeed passed through it. Lu Yi said, it is indeed a little dangerous. However, if you're careful, it shouldn't be a problem. Luan Xiao shook her head and said, that place is a land of death. The starry sky magnetic storms are everywhere. They sweep through the entire universe. No one can escape from them once they enter. Wuxia also nodded and said, I went to that place 600 years ago. However, I was forced to retreat after venturing less than 100,000 kilometers into the chaotic explosion zone. If we cultivators don't have spiritual power to control us, we don't feel safe at all. Lu Yi frowned when he heard this. If he hadn't personally passed through the chaotic explosion zone, he would have thought that Luan Xiao and Wuxia were just trying to scare him. However, these 2 Yao had no reason to scare him over something like this. The chaotic explosion zone was indeed dangerous. However, it wasn't as dangerous as the 2 of them were making it out to be. Luan Xiao asked, is there no other route? Lu Yi shook his head. This is the only route that I know of. Perhaps there are others, but I don't know about them. Luan Xiao sighed and looked at Wuxia. Fellow Taoist Wu, if you want to enter the chaotic explosion zone, I'm afraid you'll have to think about it at length. Wuxia also sighed. Indeed. The 2 of them seemed to have the intention of backing out. Lu Yi asked, fellow Taoist Wu passed through the chaotic explosion zone 600 years ago. What about fellow Taoist Luan? Luan Xiao replied, "It's been over 500 years. Lu Yi thought for a moment and said, "Is there a possibility that the chaotic explosion zone isn't as dangerous as it used to be?" You're tuning in to the Han Li's Immortal Journey YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.